Okay, I think we're just about set, so let's go ahead and get to the main thing. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone tonight? I don't know all of the answer at once. Yeah, just kidding. Anyways, go ahead and get to the... Hmm. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and move chat box too. There we go. Hmm. So now I'm gonna have to figure out where to... Yeah, I guess I'll pick the Xbox over here, actually. Still wanna do reactions while I draw. Speaking of, today I'd go ahead and do one of Cam Sandwich video. Yeah, I discovered the Cam Sandwich when I watched Magic Mush's video on the Scott the Woz clones. And I actually got curious since his videos were actually one of the few that were recommended. And when you know it, I actually enjoyed his videos quite a bit. So, yeah, let's go ahead and react to his video on the break key files. If you don't know what break key is, it's TLDR. It is a failed toy line where the whole point of the toy was to competitively break the other's key, and once you do, the said key is completely worthless. It was subject to his compilation of most worthless objects previously, so yeah, let's go ahead and see what his thoughts are, further thoughts are on the product. Okay, let's go ahead and
How's it going, dudes? So you're a big fan of trash. Can't stop thinking about it, can't stop watching it, can't stop eating it. When it comes to flat out garbage, you're the first guy they ask. But you have a problem.
Hey, I'll have you know that it's a stereotype among skunks. A stereotype that's also kind of true, actually. But humans do it too, what I'm saying. I don't know what else to take this.
Problem. When you're out playing games, you are missing out on time that could be spent creating waste. As with how busy the world is nowadays, you simply can't afford to take this time off. Luckily, you won't have to anymore with the hottest invention from the far-off future of 2003, Garbage the Game.
Or you could just be a politician. Either way works.
Breaky, the game about creating waste and setting money on fire. Put the two opposing keys together, twist, and watch on in horror as one of them breaks forever. I mean, in terms of ideas, that's gotta be one of them. Breaky is quite the legend around these parts, being one of the few games to qualify for the worthless distinction and officially being voted as the worst board game of all time. This thing has garnered quite the reputation since I covered it in the Pointless Games video. And I covered quite a few things in its segment. There was the gameplay, there was the tie-ins, there was the Dutch television program, and afterwards, I thought that would be the end of it. We'd hold our silly little tournament, it would probably do well, and then we'd all move on like I tried to do with several of our other channel mascots. But if there's one thing that I can count on from this community, it's that you will not let a bit die. And as I moved on from the Breaky segment to crafting the tournament, a few of my more investigative fans over on the Discord began a search for more information on the game, driven by curiosity, intrigue, or maybe a calling from some higher being. Regardless of why, they began to dig. And dig they digged until they came across some of the most arcane knowledge to ever come from a product line this stupid.
I mean, can you really blame them? The very premise of Breaky was literally to waste money. You need to know what the thought process behind that is.
Transcribing their findings into one of the most curious documents to ever grace the hands of man, the Breaky Files. And now I get to talk about this game for 18 more pages. Thanks, guys! A massive shout out to
You're welcome.
Doesn't Know French, Mitch Watches Berliner, and everyone who helped put this beast together. As contained within these crazed documents, we basically have the full story of Breaky and what happened to it in neat, digestible files. Quite literally in the case of the one labeled The Edible Files. Oh, this one isn't gonna cause my brain melt to flare up at all. So ladies and gentlemen, you better strap yourselves in as we uncover the full story behind one of the worst product lines ever put to market, Breaky. But before we go global with this Breaky breakdown, let's set ourselves up for going global with the sponsor of today's video, Saley. Picture this,
right.
You love
Get
the
other rolls.
Breaky show so
Let
much
the
that
heads
you
roll.
decide to visit the Netherlands to get in on all the hype. But once you arrive, oh no! Not only are there no Breakies here, but since you forgot to get a SIM card for this country, your roaming fees kicked in and drained you of every dime you've ever had. How does this keep happening to me? Luckily, Saley is here to prevent this confusion right from the start. Saley is an eSIM service that will allow you to connect to the local network of any country without the hassle of needing to find and install a different SIM card. I have been abroad twice, and I kid you not, the whole time I was petrified of using mobile data without thinking and instantly losing $20 to $30. So you know if I'm ever outside the old US of A again, I'm leaving that stress here with an eSIM my silky smooth brain can't misplace halfway through the trip. All you need to do is download the app, get a plan from one of the 190 countries and 8 regions, activate the eSIM, and you're good to go. Start with Saley before you leave and start your trip off stress-free. And get 15% off your Saley data plan by using code CAMSANDWICH at checkout. Download the Saley app or go to saley.com/camsandwich and start saving on stress. Thank you again to Saley for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to seeing how much stress Breaky is going to cause me with all of their craptastic ideas. The Breaky files are a collection of findings that are split into 3 major categories: the physical files, the online files, and the marketing files. We'll tackle these in the same order that the document does, partially to not disrespect the clean formatting, and partially because this way we'll get progressively dumber with the things we uncover. So to start us off, let's begin with the physical files. The physical files contain 3 findings that deal with the key's build and functionality. Like the first one here that mentions that the brake keys are made from a recyclable material. I tell you, it's not easy being green. Thanks to the discovery of a Chinese patent from 2001.
Yes. Recycling plastic. The most tragic hoax of the 20th century. And sadly still ongoing. And now we're, sadly ingesting it. as if it's pure divine karma.
And I mean, we just started. It is shown that brake keys were made of polypropylene, a recyclable material that would allow the keys to not be sent immediately to a landfill upon breakage, possibly reducing the environmental devastation that the keys would otherwise pose. I say possibly, as all you would need to do in order to make this happen is live in an area with recycling services, pay for those specific services, make sure that the keys make it to the correct processing facility, have them go through processing with no issues, ensure that none of the delivered material was contaminated in any way, and then entrust all those aspects to their target market of a 7 to 14-year-old, and you're good to go. See, if they would have just made them out of glass, we would have no issue here. But if for some reason you can't meet these requirements, you don't have to throw away that broken key.
So, yeah, this was ultimately doomed to fail from the start. A surprise.
Just yet, as there's a whole nother way to repurpose your freshly created trash, building crap out of it. On the official website, there were messages and images encouraging kids to take their broken brake keys and, using the broken bit as a connector, construct various structures or creations with them using their imagination. This would allow you to get a secondary use for the keys other than keeping them as trophies on that weird battle strap thing, making them ever so slightly less worthless. However, it would be good to remember that these things originally came in packs of 5. So if you wanted to construct anything nearly as cool as the Breaky Castle here, that would cost you somewhere around the range of financial ruin. Don't want to throw away the keys, but also despise the construction industry? Never fear, as you can prominently display the corpses of your enemies using our state-of-the-art feeties. Fun fact, if a grown man comes into your store and
So they just wanted to make building blocks? Then why didn't they just make building blocks? Just avoid that whole breaky bullshit hit to begin with.
asks if he can buy some feeties, international law says that you are legally allowed to gut punch him. Finally, the last part of the physical files deals with how the break keys related to food items, so now it's time to get mega stupid. In that same Chinese patent from before, they list a variety of materials that the keys could have been made out of, most of them expectingly being some form of plastic. However, at the end of one of these segments, there is quite the curious sentence. It is also conceivable to use an edible material, such as sugar, for one or more parts. Have you made a decision yet, sir? Yeah, I'll take the break key platter, but can I get that without the purple ones? I don't like purple. Unironically, if they made it to where after you break a key, you can eat that little useless bit that comes off, this game would be like 7.5 times better. But that's not all for their food follies, as in that same patent, they also talk.
So it have just accelerated the microplastic epidemic we've been suffering from. This bullshit is just getting better and better.
Talk about food adjacent options for these bad boys, such as including them in, quote, bags of crisps or boxes of cornflakes as part of a nationwide giveaway. What good would getting one breaky from a box of Frosted Flakes do you? Or by treating them as a coupon where, for example, 10 specimens can be traded for a bottle of soft drink or a tube of toothpaste. Do you have any idea what this means? If this happened, then this would have made the keys a legitimate backed currency. Now, granted, based on your standard soft drink price, these probably wouldn't be worth more than a dime a piece. But that does put them ahead of the Venezuelan Bolivar. Gee, many.
Well, you know what? A joke we have to make, people. Wow, this is worthless. It's even less than worthless, my boy!
Freaking Frosties, we are one file collection in and we're already nearly at max stupid. Where do we even go from here? Why, we leave the limitations of our physical world and enter the new possibilities presented by the digital era. We enter the online files. The online files are the smallest collection of the three. There are no sub-files in here, everything is just condensed into its single paragraph of findings. But while it might not be as big as the other collections, trust me, there is still plenty of stuff here that can rip your mind asunder. You there, I see you're about to throw away that perfectly fine breakie. Well, yeah, it's broken. What else am I supposed to do with it? Well, why don't you scratch off that silver part on the back there and see? Wow, it's a code! Yes, my boy, now put that code into the official Breaky website and behold, life after death! Yes, on each Breaky came a code that you could redeem to get that key onto your official online account, granting that key the ability to battle other online keys like some sort of digital Valhalla. Does your Breaky believe in heaven? Unfortunately, with the website being obsolete, I cannot show you the rip-roaring action of an online Breaky battle. But I can tell you that they were determined to make this work, even going so far as to just outright bribe the kids to play.
Oh, so it's prototype NFTs. Goody. And the more we learn about this thing, the less I like it. That has got to be an accomplishment.
Rise to the top of the very real online Breaky leaderboard, and Upper Deck was willing to mail you prizes for your success. These being very sensible things like more packs of Breakies, EA games from the time period, and an entire gosh dang Game Boy. There was also a collaboration with the Flip.
Oh, so EA was actually... he planned to be behind it? Why am I not surprised?
TV show Spring, oh, finally something relevant for one of these online contests. Winners could take home all kinds of fabulous prizes, such as a memory game, codes for something, keychains, mouse mats, fan books, letter paper, and a state-of-the-art reading book, as opposed to the widely popular watching book. All of these prizes were of course adorned with the famous casting characters of the television program Spring, for all the die-hard Spring fans to enjoy.
Yeah, I have no idea what Spring is. But regarding the whole reading book thing, yeah, for some reason everyone just said reading book back in the day. I don't know why either. Especially since, as Cam pointed out, it's really freaking redundant to say. But I digress.
Confounded, I missed it by just 2 decades. There were also several wallpapers or screensavers that were created that you could download to make your computer background. So if any of you Spring fans missed out on the initial rollout, I've put them full screen here for you to screenshot free of charge. I cannot express to you enough that this is your last chance. But with 2 of our collections now explored through and through, we only have one final group of findings to cover. A collection of information that is 6 times larger than the previous 2 files combined, the marketing files. Better strap yourselves in now, folks, because once we get this puppy started, there is no way to slow it down.
Oh wow, the marketing files are larger than the freaking backup plans. Who would have thought?
Are locked in. The marketing files contain any and all information that could relate to getting the brand of Breaky out to the masses, as well as the laundry list of problems associated with that mission. If you're wondering how many problems pursuing a target market could possibly cause, well, enough to fill 3 lawsuits, but we'll get back to that. For now, we're going to focus in on what Breaky...
Foreshadowing is a literary device. Oh, but... okay, yeah, but seriously, I am really wanting to hear about the whole lawsuit shit. Because... yeah, holy shit, this whole product just screams someone's gonna sue. Just for how bad it is.
Did to get their items into the hands of children everywhere. We touched on this a little bit in the original video, where they used everything from colorful imagery to tie-ins with popular media to one really weird Dutch television program that was truly one of a kind. And thank goodness for that, as after experiencing that madness, I don't know what I would do if there turned out to be a second television program produced in an entirely different nation.
Well, there goes monetization.
Hi, ich bin nicht der Hauptpreis, sondern David, der Keymaster von Breakoff. Seid ihr bereit? Ja! Ihr auch? Super! Ab 6. Oktober, Montag bis Freitag um 13:40 Uhr ist es Breakoff-Time. Hier bei RTL 2, 3, 2, 1, Breakoff!
Why do we keep Germany around again? Yes, unfortunately for the wider world's mental state, there was
To answer your question, they are probably the only ones who are managing our economy these days. Because Lord knows America isn't.
another breaky show, this one featuring German television legend David Beer as the host and going by the title Break Off. This name coming from the fact that the show was not ashamed of the product it was showing off like Can You Beat Me was, although the jury is still out on if they should have been. Amazingly, these two shows followed completely different structures with how they went about these breaky battles. In Can You Beat Me, the game would follow a single elimination bracket between 4 children, and whichever one survived the day final would not only win a Can You Beat Me t-shirt, but would also advance to the week final on Friday to win an even bigger prize. Unfortunately, we have no idea what this prize was, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it was a 3-day, 2-night vacation in the beautiful faraway streets of scenic South Central Detroit. Meanwhile, in Break Off,
because you can't have shit in Detroit.
To break both of the other team's keys to secure the win. If they were skilled enough to manage that, they would get the chance to select one of 5 doors that contained prizes. 4 of them being just crap like boxes of breakies, but one of them containing the fabulous grand prize. Again, we don't know. Sunny, smiling South Central Detroit! If you picked crap on your selection, you could choose to come back the next day to play again with that door eliminated, running the risk of losing it all if you ended up losing. Oh no, not my breakies. The German website for the show also adds a little bit of world building to the program by saying that the competition is held inside of the Break-Off Dome. Quote, the Break-Off Dome is located in the Plaza Media Studios in Ismaning near Munich. This is where Premiere produces the Formula 1 live coverage and the UEFA Champions League broadcast, among others. The studios also produce well-known TV series such as Hausmeister Klaus and the Kocht Comedy Club. The butchering of the language is to wash away the sins of the program. The Dutch remain unforgiven. Unbelievably, the mad lads that put these files together actually managed to follow the corporate ladder all the way to the companies that might be in possession of these shows today and emailed them to see if they could get any more footage. And here's how that went. Fox spit back some corpo speak that roughly translates to screw off. RTL's Vi, who produced the German show, replied back saying that most old programs and shows can't be aired anymore due to licensing issues and that they no longer provide show fragments for personal use. And Talpa, the streaming platform that succeeded the Dutch network, said that they are sorry to disappoint, but that they don't have any digital footage of the program since it was from before they acquired KIJK and it was not transferred over. Even in
Oh yeah, it appears that everyone doesn't want to address the break key. I wonder why. Oh, also I got enough. And it doesn't look like anything important.
Including a sad face to show their sadness at the situation. Alright, Dutch people, this person was nice enough that you are hereby forgiven for the show, but don't do it again. And there's the full story of all we know about these shows. Call to action, lost media, whatever. But we need to focus up because somehow it's time for us to get even dumber. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going on tour. From October to December in 30 cities in these countries, Breaky rolled around Europe holding small tournaments where kids could compete for prizes. This tour was either known as the Break-Off Tour or the Breaky Battle Tour. And the winner of each event was of course crowned that city's one and only Keymaster. These are not to be confused with the Bray King. The Keymasters are regional rulers, similar to a duke. Crazily, there was also some of this hot tour action going on in the States later, as one of our Discord members actually remembers attending one of these events at his local Toys R Us, where his friend ended up winning a GameCube, automatically elevating Joe's friend to the coolest kid in that region for the next 2 months. But why only go on tour with tournaments when we could be going on tour with originally produced music? Upper Deck, in the most eggs-in-one-basket marketing play I've ever seen, nearly managed to sign a deal where they agreed to sponsor a cross-country tour for an unnamed pop group from Orlando, in exchange for that group writing an original song about breakies. What are we doing here? Come on! Despite Billboard reporting that the agreement was in the process of being signed, the deal eventually fell through. Which I wouldn't trust Billboard's reporter here too much anyway, as he said that a European tour was also involved, and that's just outright wrong. But we do know that this deal did exist, as one of the lawsuits mentions it, so we'll be getting back to that soon. But more importantly, who was this mystery band that almost gave us a hot breaky track? Well, many theories exist, but with it needing to be a band that was 1, from Orlando, Florida, 2, likely going to be making new music in the next few years, and 3, big enough to warrant the cost of a nationwide tour, the best option that hits on all of those points was likely the effing Backstreet Boys. Could you even imagine?
Of course, that's just a theory. Chances are that some boy band would probably have just been given the role instead. But still, that would have been a very interesting footnote.
Unbreakable. Yeah. But why stop at a tie-in with one of the most popular boy bands of all time when there are so many other properties to be harvested? Licensing time. Breaky was very much interested in the, man, our property stinks, can we borrow yours style of licensing, slapping that one guy/thing all over those bad boys in a desperate attempt to stop you from thinking about the actual game. We've got it all. We've got Major League Baseball, we've got Metabots, we've got Susuke and Wisuke, we've got the hit television program Spring, F it, German One Piece commercial.
Breaky, die Schlüssel mit den coolsten Figuren von One Piece.
Monkey die Ruffy, Buggy der Clown,
Breaky!
Break off, yeah!
Come on, man.
The One Piece is real. We have seen it.
Amazingly, other tie-ins were planned for other properties to join in on the fun that never ended up happening. From fictional creations like Marvel and Pokemon to more professional sports like the NHL and the NFL. Man, now I'll never get my Dante Culpepper breaky beans. And that's it. No more stupid marketing from this nonsense. We're done. And I don't know about you, but I need some kind of reparations for what I was just put through there. Luckily, we have just that, as it's now time to watch this entire operation crash and burn through the lens of the 3 different lawsuits that killed this crap for the good of everyone not employed at Upper Deck. There are...
Oh boy, this is gonna be good. Because let's be real here. They deserve every single lawsuit they got.
3 lawsuits on offer here, the first relating to that alleged Backstreet Boys fiasco from earlier, and the last 2 directly resulting in the death of the whole product line. I have never been this excited for something that has already happened in my life. Let's start off with the first one and dive into the rowdy courtroom drama of Buzz Marketing versus Upper Deck Company, Eastern Court of Pennsylvania. Upper Deck contacted Buzz Marketing in January 2003 during their search for marketing firms to help with marketing the launch of Breaky. Upper Deck's then Vice President of Sales, I kid you not, Rich Henry, who is real, alive, and has been working at the Pokemon Company for the last 20 years, met up with Buzz Marketing CEO Mark Hughes at an exhibition in New York in February 2003. After some discussion, Rich Henry asked Hughes to prepare a proposal for Upper Deck to evaluate. 5 proposals were sent from March to mid-April, the first 4 being rejected by Upper Deck, but the 5th one containing an idea so revolutionary that they simply could not refuse. The 5th and final proposal outlined a domestic marketing campaign in which a popular music group would be paid to endorse the product. And on the 14th of May, Rich Henry and Hughes had a phone call in which they discussed that 5th proposal. After this call, an amended version of the 5th proposal was sent to Upper Deck, along with a request for a $122,000 wire transfer. Whatever amount of money you think this thing lost, double it and take it from the next project. 16 days later, on the 30th of May, Upper Deck's marketing manager phoned Hughes to say that she would call him when the 122 bandos was going to be wired. Also on that same day, the marketing director, quote, left a voicemail for Hughes stating that he would be receiving the wire transfer on Monday or Tuesday of the following week. Now, this isn't mentioned anywhere in the doc, but common sense would dictate that after hearing this news, Hughes immediately went, "Aw, yeah." After this, the article fiasco happened with that entire fake European tour, and then on the 2nd of June, Upper Deck sent Hughes another revised edition of the 5th proposal. And then on the next day of the 3rd of June, Hughes sent Upper Deck more revisions of the 5th proposal. Later the same day, Upper Deck responded with yet more revisions to the 5th proposal. 8 days later, on the 11th of June 2003, Rich Henry called Hughes to inform him that Upper Deck would not be launching the Breaky product and therefore Buzz marketing services would not be needed. Imagine, 122 bandos. Gone! Henry also requested an itemized list of Buzz Marketing's costs for reimbursement, which Buzz Marketing submitted, but Upper Deck never paid, so...
Wow, who would have could have seen that coming? A frickin' rug pull. Christ, this really was a prototype of NFTs.
Now, it's lawsuit time. We've got quite the match here on our hands, ladies and gentlemen, as Buzz Marketing is coming in with a 4-pronged attack. We've got breach of written contract, breach of oral contract, breach of implied in fact contract, and unjust enrichment / quantum merit. Let's see how they did. Parts 1, 3, and 4 were all thrown out immediately as there was never a written contract. Buzz's evidence for implied in fact was dismissed as hearsay, and they just immediately gave up on their own 4th point. Not a great start. They did still have their second option though, and you only need to win one. So let's see how breach of oral contract held up. According to Buzz Marketing, an oral contract was formed on the 14th of May during the phone call between Henry and Hughes. However, based on previous precedent, the 5th agreement contained language that signaled the intent of both parties to execute the agreement in writing. Furthermore, the fact that there were modifications to the 5th proposal after the 14th of May suggests that there could not have been a contract on the 14th of May. In other words, they're screwed. It is so over. In the end, summary judgment was granted to Upper Deck, the case was closed, and they started off 1-0 in the civil court. But that was really more of a warm-up round. Heck, the opposition even surrendered on one of their own claims. The next bout is not going to be as easy, as now we have entered the main event and the biggest reason as to why this product line ever died off in the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Upper Deck Company versus Breaky International, Southern District Court of New York. As a background, the ferocious Breaky marketing and even the keys themselves completely vanished out of nowhere sometime in the second half of 2004, followed by their various websites in early 2005. This rapturous event of the entire Breaky brand was seemingly kicked off by one minor miscommunication between Upper Deck and Breaky International that eventually led to the lawsuit that killed the entire idea. So let's see for ourselves what exactly happened here. In July 2002, Ken Ross from Breaky contacted Richard McWilliam from Upper Deck to propose a cooperation between the two companies with regards to the new Breaky game. A few samples of these keys were sent over, and much later, on the 15th of November 2002, both companies came together and signed the updated Breaky license agreement. So Upper Deck didn't even create the Breaky line. Somebody else made this garbage on their own, showed it to Upper Deck, and they went, "What a great idea!" and just started throwing money at them. Part of this agreement was that Breaky was going to help Upper Deck create a website for the online portion, which is going to become very important soon. Now, ready yourselves for this one, folks. Upper Deck agreed to pay Breaky $5 million in non-returnable minimum guarantees to cover royalties from the sales. $5 million fully guaranteed. Kirk Cousins type guaranteed money on a bunch of plastic keys. This was to be paid in two parts, one immediately at the execution of the agreement and one at the beginning of the second term year on November 15th, 2003. Upper Deck paid the first $2.5 million, and Breaky provided the source code for the website in December. $2.5 million up front for the right to sell this. What a steal! After
I've heard of worse deals. I mean, granted, it's still a bad deal, but I've definitely heard worse.
sending $2.5 million their way, it was smooth sailing. But by early 2003, Upper Deck began to find many problems with that earlier source code. In a meeting in May of that year, Upper Deck informed Breaky of this and said that the agreement had to be amended. So they gave them this revised agreement, but Breaky demanded that the $5 million total had to be increased. Guys, I don't think you get it. More guaranteed money! Upper Deck disagreed with this shakedown, and on the 13th of November, 2 days before their next payment was due, they decided, yeah, I think we're gonna sue you now, and Breaky went, oh, that sounds like a great idea, we'll do it right back. So with our wacky cast of characters and their motivations established, let's go ahead and jump right into the battle. Upper Deck learned that it is not wise to spread yourself thin like Buzz Media did, so they are only going in with one devastating attack, breach of contract. As it had reached the date where Upper Deck owed the other half of their fully guaranteed money, Upper Deck had to pay Breaky $2.5 million, but refused to do so because it argued that the source code that Breaky provided for the Breaky.nl website was not sufficient to host an online competition with a lot of different users in multiple different languages. Breaky then shot back and argued that it was just there to provide the source code and was never required to make sure it fulfilled those requirements. Your Honor, we're just here to provide the code. We were never contractually obligated to prove that it actually worked. Breaky moved for a summary judgment to dismiss the lawsuit, but was denied. After this, literally nothing happens. The lawsuit just ends here, so I think this was just to determine whether or not the case would be thrown out. It wasn't, so
And it's just as abruptly as Illuminati versus Oz Media. Weird.
So with neither company really winning here, we're just gonna call this one a draw. But now it's time to hit the real deal. The big kahuna. The one and only. The finale of all finales. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Upper Deck Company versus Breaky International 2. Southern District Court of New York. This matchup is the culmination of everything we have seen so far, giving us what both sides are competing for, their evidence and thought processes, and all of the information surrounding Breaky's rise and fall. So let's go ahead and start back at the beginning. The Breaky IP consists of two products, the actual small plastic keys and the online game called Breaky. In the contract signed in 2002, Breaky granted Upper Deck an exclusive 2-year license to use, copy, promote, distribute, market, and sell the Breaky product worldwide, excluding a few countries. Upper Deck agreed to launch the product in the United States, EU, and Japan, collectively called the Material Territories, by May 2003, and all other territories by November 2003. This is the full background. Upper Deck likes their stuff, they want to sell it, Breaky gives them permission, and in return gets royalties for each sale. Upper Deck does all the work for them, they still get paid a little bit, but Upper Deck has to follow some rules. For example, Upper Deck had to spend a minimum of $1 million on marketing and advertising for each of the 2 years in each of the 3 territories. For a total of $6 million, may I remind you, spent advertising small plastic keys that break forever the first time they lose. In addition to that, they have to give Breaky 10% of all net sales with a minimum of $2.5 million, which is the non-returnable minimum guarantee that was mentioned earlier. So basically, if the Breakies take off and become the next Beanie Babies, Breaky International makes a frankly stupid amount of money. But if the product flops and sells nothing, they still get $2.5 million. They quite literally cannot lose. Now, there was a reason as to why Upper Deck wasn't allowed to sell in the Benelux countries, because Breaky already had another company, Studio 100, selling the keys in that area. I guess everybody's just lining up to license these things. Studio 100 was the exclusive distributor for Breaky in Benelux. It bought 15,000 boxes of the Breaky product and then sold them from December 2003 until May 2004, before terminating the agreement in June of that year. Probably when they realized that this might be just a little bit ridiculous. Now, we need to do a quick rapid fire of information before we move on, or else you're gonna lose a lot of context. Breaky believes that the wholesale revenue of Breakies are between $29 and $54 per box. Wow, that is a complete ripoff. Screw you, buddy. The Breakies were produced
charging
in China,
money was
explains the Chinese patent
in the
that
first
exists
place is a
physical
bit of a
copies.
ripoff,
And
but
lastly,
still.
the Studio 100 boxes were delivered in December 2003 and stopped being sold in early June. Got all that? Alrighty, back to the action. According to the managing director of Breaky, Studio 100 reported that they had sold 70% of the inventory after 3 months. He was also informed by Studio 100 that they believed all 15,000 boxes were sold, but were not certain as the keys were sold in a joint venture. In other words, they sold out. Belgium, you have 15 seconds to explain yourself. Now, the rest of the info mainly deals with this Stewart guy and his sales projections figures, and we'll take a look at those later. For now, let's finish this up with the fact that after the fallout of Upper Deck and Breaky around November of 03, Breaky was in talks with another licensee in June of 04, I guess to run it back? Also, the fact that Breaky is trying to receive an unspent amount of the minimum of $6 million Upper Deck was required to spend suggests that the budget they had used was less than $6 million. Whew, thank goodness. They only spent slightly less than $6 million on marketing. For a second there, I thought we might have just wasted a ton of money. And that's it. We finally have all of the necessary
They still wasted
background
money, but
information
still.
to understand what in the world is going on here. So let's go ahead and jump back into this bad boy to see which of these two jokers is going to come out on top. Upper Deck. Sewer, looking to have Breaky hit with the breach of contract penalty so that it does not have to pay the $2.5 million of guaranteed money. Breaky International. Sui, countering for that $2.5 million of guaranteed money, as well as more cash on top of that in the form of 1. Lost royalties in the second year of the agreement, 2. Lost royalties beyond the term of agreement, and 3. Breaky's claim for $6 million in unspent advertising dollars. We've got quite a lot on the line here, so let's see how it went. On October 13th, after oral arguments that we sadly only have the final results of, the courts awarded the summary judgment in favor of Breaky, deciding that Upper Deck was the one who broke the agreement by not paying them the $2.5 million of more guaranteed money. I imagine the decision went something like, so the money was guaranteed. Yes, fully guaranteed, but they shouldn't get it because they failed to give the website multinational tournament functionality. Was that required within the contract terms? No, get out of here. Yeah, so having to pay the money they themselves fully guaranteed, big loss for Upper Deck there. But just how big could this loss get, as they stood to lose way more dosh if even a single one of Breakey's countersuits ended up hitting? We'll tackle these in order of least to most devastating, starting off surprisingly with Breakey's claim for $6 million of unspent advertising. Breakey argued that they were entitled to the remaining amount of the money that was supposed to be spent in that $6 million advertising budget Upper Deck was required to use, which would have granted them a solid total of however much was left. Yeah, a concrete number for this remaining amount was not given, and if how much is left over seems like an important number to know, it is. Claim denied. Next up, lost royalties in the second year of the agreement. This is where we meet the main character of this segment. Breakey hired economist Marion B. Stewart, who comes in and just really hammers home what we've been dealing with here. Breakey brought Stewart in to show that Upper Deck's failures in that second term caused Breakey to lose out on $9.4 million in royalties. So Upper Deck, per their agreement, should have to pay an additional $6.9 million on top of the $2.5 guaranteed. How did Stewart arrive at this number? Well, this was calculated using the sale of the 15,000 boxes from Studio 100. That agreement only lasted half the year, so therefore the figure was doubled to get 30,000 and multiplied that by $32, gotten from a combination of a sales report by a Spanish company called Deset from 2002, which Breakey never contacted, a discussion about Breakey's sales in the Netherlands, and 3 Upper Deck documents. Stewart concluded that Breakey lost at least $8 million in royalties in the material territories, and this was combined with a similar analysis in 13 other countries with, quote, per capita income levels and rates of interest use at least as high as those at the lower end of the list in the material territories, for sales of 1.4 million achieving the 9.4 million. Confused? Yeah, so was everybody else. Breakey was then asked to identify documents that showed that the sales by Studio 100 happened over a 6-month period. It instead submitted a declaration by Breakey's managing director which stated that this happened because the boxes were delivered in December 2003, Studio 100 stopped selling the boxes in early June 2004, and Studio 100 did not return any unsold boxes to Breakey, which was allowed under the license agreement. And if they didn't return the boxes, this must mean that they sold them all, yeah? Checkmate. That is not admissible evidence! Stewart then pointed to other data that was evidence for Upper Deck making sales greater than $25 million, all of which were also dismissed. I can't believe they were either, not when he was using rock-solid data points like these.
Okay, seriously. What the fuck did Breakey hire to do their economics? Digital homicide?
Single comment by Upper Deck CEO over dinner where he said the product would generate $120 to $180 million in sales each year. An internal Upper Deck document titled Brand Strategy that notes a worldwide launch and lists among their brand objectives generating $50 million in revenue by December of 2004, and Stewart's own projected sales for 37 countries, although the court noted that the product had never been sold in 35 of them. Just a real rock star out there. Yeah, unsurprisingly, every single one of these was dismissed. Along with that, the court said that Stewart's calculations, quote, are based on too many unsupportable assumptions to establish the existence of lost royalties within the reasonable certainty required, and then his extrapolation was also scrutinized. Brother couldn't even get the chart right. So this claim also ended up being denied. But never fear, we've still got one left, and it blows all of this other noise out of the water, as this is Breakey's chance to really rake in the cash with lost royalties beyond the term of agreement. Breakey argued that it could have made more money in a future license agreement, but that it couldn't now because of Upper Deck's wrongful conduct screwing over the brand perception. Dude, I can't believe Upper Deck made us look like a complete waste of plastic and resources. What the balls? To figure out just how much Upper Deck shenanigans cost them in the long run, they brought their boy Stewart back in to ring in this home run, and he came up with the totally reasonable figure of $19.6 million. It is not explained how this figure was
Yep,
achieved.
they definitely hired Digital
Have run
Homicide.
out of reasonable reactions? Seeing the writing on the wall here, Breaky also tried to argue based on logic that no company will license a product if that product's patentability is being challenged, if that product has been dumped on the market and then withdrawn, if a major former licensee of the product is defaming the product and the product's owners, and if they thereby might be dragged into litigation. Okay, Breaky, you're kind of spitting there. That was pretty good. Now, what data do you have to back that up? Well, none, but it sounded cool when I wrote it down. Can I please have $20 million? Breaky did not supply any material evidence supporting these claims, and the court stated that these arguments were, quote, not a substitute for a plaintiff's obligation to provide evidence of facts that support the applicability of the expert's opinion to the case. Basically begging, can you please provide a smidgen of actual admissible evidence? Surprisingly, Breaky went, oh yeah, we can. Hold on a second. There's no shot. There's not a single shot. Okay, so what we have here is a declaration from a potential licensee that echoes the sentiments that we put forward in our statement, directly confirming that this mindset can be applied to our current situation. Oh dang, this is actual admissible evidence. You can legitimately do something with this. Sweet, when did you guys get your hands on this? Oh, we had it the entire time. We withheld it during discovery.
What the fuck?
They might be dumber than we are. The fact that they had
Jesus Christ. It's like they were trying to just lose the lawsuit or something. Seriously, how do you make Upper Deck look smart by comparison? Those motherfuckers literally thought it was a good idea to sell bootlegs of the franchise they were maintaining. Jesus fucking Christ.
purposefully withheld this information during the discovery phase meant that this evidence was completely inadmissible, meaning that all they had to go off of was a statement that they couldn't back up and Stewart's $20 million figure that he refused to show the math for. Needless to say, this one was also denied, officially closing the case by granting partial summary judgment to Breaky while denying its countersuit claims. And that...
Oh, hey Alex. I'm currently drawing an adoptable while watching a canned sandwich video.
officially puts a close to the Breaky files. So to remind you of what we all just witnessed here, let's do a quick recap. Breaky, the company, patents their awesome idea of Breaky, the product,
Oh, thank you.
disposable plastic keys that permanently break on a loss. These keys can, however, be recycled sometimes, be used to build things, or in an alternate timeline, be eaten because they're made of sugar. Breaky, the company, shows up to Upper Deck HQ and shows off Breaky, the product. Upper Deck loves it so much that they immediately jump on board. Upper Deck signs a 2-year contract with Breaky, the company, where they pay $2.5 million upfront to have the exclusive rights to sell Breaky nearly worldwide. Breaky, in return, needs to give them a source code for a website. Upper Deck cashes in every favor they've ever had to get Breaky, the product, tied in with shows, sports, and characters, commissions a traveling tournament all over Europe, holds a few of them in the US at various Toys R Us locations, makes 2 separate European television programs all about playing the game for prizes, and allegedly commissions the Backstreet Boys to write a song about the keys in exchange for bankrolling a nationwide tour. After doing all of this, Upper Deck is so upset that their provided website does not contain multinational tournament functionality that they sue Breaky to withhold the extra $2.5 million that they previously guaranteed, ruining the relationship and killing any chance of Breaky succeeding. Breaky, of course, wins the lawsuit because the money was guaranteed, but fumble around in the courtroom so much that their countersuits are denied and they don't get a cent more than their fully guaranteed money. The result of this is millions of dollars wasted, an entire product line built, hyped up, and killed off for no reason, and the complete and total degradation of my physical and mental well-being for having to experience all of this. And what happened to Upper Deck after all this? After they lost anywhere from $8 to $10 million farting around with this breaky nonsense? They'd go out and buy their former competitor Fleer. It didn't do anything. It had practically no impact on them at all. It's like it never even happened. This nonsense doesn't even appear on the Upper Deck Wikipedia page. That has a whole section for lawsuits, and none of these three are there. I'm constantly having to double check and make sure I'm not on some strange Dutch prank show and that this is all real. The fact that all of this took place is absolutely wild. But the fact that all of this happened and then everyone involved just seemed to immediately forget about it is somehow even crazier. Upper Deck didn't even flinch. They just said, business is business, and then wrote.
I mean, to be fair, Upper Deck is an extremely morally bankrupt company. This shit was probably like an average Tuesday for them. Oh, yeah, this is Cam Sandwich. It's Scott the Woz clone, but for board games, and he's actually one of the good ones. Well, to be fair, there's like a billion other TCGs that are out there now, so don't exactly have a shortage. Yeah, I'm probably gonna check out his video on tabletop RPGs, since that one's actually a pretty good one. It's actually the one I started with.
Off into the shining, gleaming sunset. You know, up until they got sued by Konami for producing counterfeit Yu-Gi-Oh cards, lost their license to the property, and went bankrupt 4 years later, but business is business. This is...
Yeah, and those guys were actually the sane ones in the break key situation. Hey, Lord. This entire frickin' product is a clusterfuck. Oh yeah, I heard about Lorcana. It's fine, but yeah, very flawed game from what I hear. I stayed away from it because one of their artists was outed as using AI for their shit, and yeah, I ultimately just stayed away from the project out of principle. I mean, granted, from what I heard, the artist got fired for it, but still.
is, without a doubt, one of the wildest board game stories on the market. The unrelenting barrage of gut punch after gut punch of information is truly astonishing. And I want to give another massive thank you to the team who put this collection together for digging up this oil well of whack crap for us to experience. If you want to take a look at the files for yourself, I'll have them linked down in the description. They are still being updated with new information every time one of these guys stumbles across something. For example, while I was making the video, they figured out that the online game at one point had a peak of 27,000 players. Europe, if you give me a valid reason to hate on you, that makes it less fun. As for me, I am glad that I now have absolutely no reason to ever talk about this game again. I learned it, I bought it, I broke it, there is nothing else for me to do short of holding a tournament myself, and I don't have $6 million that I'm contractually obligated to spend. So this is the last you're gonna hear about this garbage for quite some time. As such, I've prepared this goodbye message for our glorious Bray King that we should all strive to remember. Bray Key would have taken off, that I guarantee. Remember that in Benelux, they sold out of the key. If you think that's a stretch, that this trash is not a winner, remember what the kids did when they met the fidget spinner. So we got really lucky that this business just imploded, or else the landfills everywhere would have gotten overloaded. So the next time that you see a fad that you can't comprehend, remember your pal Breaky and just ignore the trend. Signing off for Bray King Bad, I am Cam Sandwich. Thank you for watching.
And I think that's a pretty good note to end on. If you don't understand a current trend, just remember your trends were absolute garbage and kids are fucking stupid. It's really how I kind of view a lot of shit. Getting old sucks.
Watching and have a fantastic day. A special thank you to my suppliers, staff, and chefs over at the deli, as well as the media preservers helping me get these rare games ported for the public to enjoy. If you'd like to join the crew, you can take a look using the link in the description below.
So, yeah. That was Cam Sandwich's exploring the breakkey files. Actually, I'll go ahead and link this down because he has some pretty good stuff I would totally recommend. And yeah, let's go ahead and link it on Twitch too. I mean, like when you're on there, but so let's go ahead and watch his video on the worst tabletop RPGs.
How's it going, dudes? Bad mechanics, bad themes, bad balance. All of these words could be used to describe your standard, poorly managed auto repair shop. But if you're looking to get yourself on the list of the worst tabletop RPGs, you're gonna need to do a little bit better than just those, as you would not believe the amount of absolute trash that this side of the market has going on. As you may have noticed, we've got quite the long one on our hands here. A cavalcade of whack crap that includes outright broken mechanics, games that were published unfinished, and two separate unholy trinities. One of them including the single most agonizing reading experience I've ever had the displeasure of setting my retinas upon.
They are not exaggerating, by the way, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Because, holy crap, what he's about to go over is brain-meltingly dumb.
So let's waste no more time and jump headfirst into the full collection of the worst tabletop RPGs. It says a lot, what with me normally starting these off with the games that are pretty bad before working my way up to the atrocities, that the very first category that I have on offer is the literally broken group. We're in for a fun ride. Starting us off, get those laser pointers out and make sure they're charged. You're becoming a cyborg commando. Personally, I'm more of a fan of cyborg briefs, but everybody has their preference. Cyborg Commando is the 1987 game that sees players take up the roles of the titular cybernetic soldiers. Men who have transferred their brains into cybernetic bodies in order to fight an invading alien threat. Cyborg Commando was a pretty hyped up game leading up to its release due to two factors. One, that premise is absolutely perfect for 1987, and two, one of the people who helped make the game was Gary Gygax, who has a bit of a reputation in the scene due to his work in co-creating the pretty niche tabletop title known as Dungeons & Dragons. This bad boy's got a lot going for it, and with
Or
such
Forgotten
stellar
Realms nowadays.
reviews as Cyborg Commando isn't the worst game written, and this is a product that should be held up to designers as a lesson in how not to write a game, there's a lot of potential here. Wait, what? Yeah, they biffed it. They biffed it really bad. Cyborg Commando falls victim to a lot of the traps that the other RPGs on this list do too, the most common two being how detailed the game is and the flaws of their new system. Let's break it down. Cyborg Commando has a lot of detailed information that will help get you invested in the world. Invader numbers, populations of cities, Cyborg Commando base locations, info about the biology of the aliens, all of this stuff having very little relevance to the game itself. Even worse are the skills, as after converting yourself into a full-on metal war machine, you'd think you'd dedicate your skills to saving the human race from extinction and not stuff like entertainment ability and veterinary care for marine animals. I'm pinned down and there's a seal with an injured flipper. I need cover! All of this fluff apparently ends up making the game feel a little shallow when you end up running through it. But don't you worry, your cyborg body won't be running for long before it up and runs out of energy. See, what with the whole world ending and all, the military couldn't get the AA Duracells that they wanted and instead had to go generic. So each cyborg commando can only last a maximum of 30 minutes in battle before they run out of juice. This is not a great time, what with the globe-spanning war going on, but it gets even worse if the Borgs use their main weapon, a laser that shoots out of their fingers. Every shot uses some of your battery life, and it is your main form of attack. So if you decide to shoot your laser once every round, as you would expect to do, you are going to be powering down in less than 5 minutes. These bugs have gotta be really stupid if we haven't been wiped out yet. These guys...
Yeah, it's basically Warhammer 40k, but absolute dog shit. In fact, I can only imagine Warhammer 40k, his entire cannon fodder class. I feel like the cannon fodder class for Warhammer 40k, which is the basic army men, were direct parodies of these cyborgs, considering how useless they are, including the laser weapons being absolutely pointless. Of course, that's just a theory. A conspiracy theory. No.
couldn't even survive the commute home. That all being said, what ended up sinking this game the most was the new system that it pioneered, the D10X. The D10X system works a lot differently to your standard D20 roll, as what you do here is roll two 10-sided dice and then multiply them together to get your value, supposedly helping this get closer to a percentage-based approach for your actions. This sounds like a really cool idea, but it doesn't end up working out that way. By design, this is going to skew rolls to the lower end, but it also means that any accuracy checks just go off of this roll alone and not the player's skills at all. Another example of pretty deep concepts with shallow execution. All of this, as well as other stuff like there apparently being no rules for guns in the game despite, you know, the cover, led to this game getting pretty poor reception overall. And while 2 more sets were planned to be released, those never ended up seeing the light of day, and the company would go under soon after. But at the very least, Cyborg Commando was able to get some praise, as people saw the D10X system as a really cool idea that just didn't end up panning out. And if you're getting any praise among this crowd, then that's a big accomplishment. That stuff is in short supply here. Case in point, our next game. Wander the post-apocalypse and try to survive your journey on Dead Earth. A game so messed up by radiation that the first letter isn't even capitalized. Ugh. Dead Earth is the 2000 RPG that tasks players with attempting to survive in a brutally realistic wasteland setting. The game is meant to be hard, but
with an asterisk.
As it states, if it seems too easy to die in Dead Earth, that's because it is. Dead Earth is seemingly attempting to be the kind of game where the fact that it is so unfair is kind of the fun, with allegedly hundreds of hours of research going into how to make the radioactive wasteland as realistic as possible. Oh, by the way, if you absorb enough radiation, you can literally fight death in order to save someone's soul. That just tends to happen sometimes. Yeah, the game seems to struggle with its own identity a lot, as a ton of the game is hyping up the realism of the setting, but it has absolutely no qualms of dropping that premise entirely whenever it's convenient. It ends up being convenient quite a lot. For instance, the combat of Dead Earth allows you to attack one of a person's 18 individual body parts, which all come with their own varying levels of hit points. After all, hundreds of hours of research has come to the conclusion that your head is going to be able to take a lot less punishment than your chest. However, the game does not include any type of penalties for going for one body part over another. So you are equally as likely to hit someone in the neck with an attack as you are to hit them in the chest. And as Dyson Logos points out in his rundown of the game, the damage of a sword is enough that the average human with a strength of 1 will automatically kill someone with a sword blow to the neck. To be fair, I think I would also die if a sword struck me in the neck, but I didn't know it would be that easy. So the realism has already tanked the balancing, but don't you worry, as there's a lot more realism to go. Since you live in an irradiated world, you are going to be coming into contact with a lot of radiation. And you know what that means: mutations! These mutations, as well as the more science fiction parts of the game, are all based around real scientific data, and can pop up both when creating your character or if you manage to come into contact with a particularly large dose. There are 1,000 possible mutations that can pop up when this happens. So I'm going to read off a few of my favorites, and any radiation specialists in the audience, be sure to chime in with how perfectly spot on they are. 15 Sloth. The radiation makes you both lazy and pathetic. Oh, the radiation?
I mean, can do that, I suppose.
A burst of radiation from your hands. 100, death. You die. 121,
okay, that's the most realistic.
An exact replica of yourself splits from your body and now wants to kill you. 139, Ritual of the Dead. You can bring your dead friend back to life if you kill their killer within 1 day. 169, Flaming Death. In 3d6 hours, you burst into flames and die. 233, Ashes to Ashes. You are spiritually linked with those you enter combat with. If you kill them, you die. 264, Geomolecular Transmutation. Your body changes at the molecular level and you are now made of living stone. 271, Spirit Guide. Quote, you have a little guy on your shoulder telling you what to do and where to go. 436, Verve Paladin. If your friend dies, you can literally fist fight Moloch as he comes to claim their soul. 536, Embryo. You start aging in reverse like gosh dang Benjamin Button. 587, Pool. You melt into a pool of goo until you die. 735, 0. Nothing. 822, empty. This means there is nothing. 823, not. Nothing. 824, not. Another spelling of nothing. 825, nix. This means nothing. Also. 826, perish. You die. 864, the gambler. Gain an extra skill point anytime you gamble. And 946, alcoholism. You are now an alcoholic. I'm just surprised that they got so much scientific data from the Moloch boxing matches. Those are notoriously tough to get into. Wow, yeah, it most certainly is pretty easy to die in this game. Those were pretty rough. But you know where it is even easier to die? While creating your gosh dang character. When determining your character's age, you will also be determining how many radiations they start the game out with that number being able to go as high as 24. And as we just saw, a lot of those radiations can put you in a horrible spot or just outright kill you before you even start playing. And what's even worse, this game is one with a character cap.
Oh, so it's basically Kaizo Fallout. I was wondering what that would look like.
In Dead Earth, you are only allowed to make a max of 3 characters before you can't play anymore. That's straight up in the rules. So if you roll 3 bad characters and they all die before they even hit the field, too bad, buddy, you aren't playing the game today. So what we've got on our hands here is a brutally realistic game full of magic, spirits, and superpowers that is so unbalanced that most enemies can be killed in one hit from a level 1 character.
So yeah, very realistic. That was sarcasm at the end. None of you could tell.
Where those enemies will most likely be fine because the character won't actually end up making it to any combat anyway. Yeah, I can see now why it landed the 1. Again, there are a lot of pretty cool ideas in here, but this thing is just a massive train wreck. Nothing works the way it's intended to, and the game is literally trying to stop you from playing right at the beginning. But hey, it's a better look than the first impression made by our next entry, as you know what Dead Earth definitely wasn't? Written by the leader of a cult! Empire of Satanis. Yes, we are on game number 3, and we've already reached the cult entries. That has got to be a new record. Empire of Satanis is the 2005 RPG created by Vinger Satanis, or Derek if you want to be less cool, who is the founder of the Cult of Cthulhu. A belief center that revolves around Cthulhu, demonic power, magic of some form, and probably a couple of other things tossed in there for good measure. We know that there is at least a little bit of magic involved somewhere in the system because after the game got torn apart by reviewers, he went into the forums of the site and tried to place an actual, I kid you not, curse on them, complete with its very own ritual speak. I will be paraphrasing the following in order to not accidentally sick the curse on all of you. Master of the Abyss, I open the unknowable doorways and touch the violet flame, drink the revitalizing blood, and break the skulls of those who cross him or his brothers. From this night forth, you will be plagued by self-doubt, weakness, failure, hopelessness, hunger, pain, loss, insecurity, and envy. Nothing can save you, and no one will come to your aid. All who have befriended you will now desert you in your hour of need. In the name of the Ancient Ones, I curse those who tear down Empire of Satanis. I cannot confirm as to whether or not the curse actually worked, but apparently he ended up getting banned, so I think it's safe to say that it did. But what is Empire of Satanis, and what makes it one of the few games out there that are curse-worthy? Well, in the game, you and your buddies play as fiends trying to increase your influence and control over the demonic realm, doing so by increasing their social standing within demon society. Oh darling, we have got to take a different route. I can't be seen around the middle-class demons. It'll hurt my image. The whole game is very strangely organized, both in terms of the layout of the pages and the game itself, as I don't think I've seen a game where your level of social standing determines the amount of spells you can cast. Also, there's an entire subset of magic called Candyland magic, which must be just the most vile and heinous spells you've ever laid your eyes on. War crime material there. The major system that Empire of Satanis uses for its skill checks is
Or at
a
least
dice
constant
pool system,
re-releasing.
where based on your stats, you will get to roll a certain number of 6-sided dice and take the best 2 dice from that group. A little bonus though, if you roll a 6, then you get to re-roll that die and add that new number to the total as well. This is actually a really cool mechanic, and I love it when games let you do this. Another major mechanic is what I refer to as the switcheroo. Whenever entering a new scene for the first time, you, the player, can request a major change be made to the direction of the story. You then roll 1 6-sided die, and if it lands on a 6, then that story change is now canon and you become the new DM, with the old one now being relegated to a character in the story. This sounds pretty cool, but I find it really unlikely that anyone that wasn't planning on being the DM for the whole night prepared a bunch of story material and encounters beforehand. And it has got to be really annoying for the guy that planned all of that to watch all of his work be thrown into the trash. Venger actually did a retrospective on his game in 2018 where he relented that, quote, Empire of Satanis is an amateurish mess of terrible cliches and something even worse. Running in the opposite direction of cliche only to hit a brick wall at top speed. Indeed, the thing is weird for weirdness' sake, and tries too hard in the process. So if the creator that tried to curse people over it doesn't even believe in the game anymore, then I think it's safe to say that this one ends up pretty low on the chopping.
Yeah.
Probably not as
We all
broken
have
as the
our
other two in terms of functionality,
cringe
but as we'll
moments.
see later, creative actions can have a massive impact on the crowd's perception of a game. But before we learn what that means, we need to first delve even deeper into the fiery pit. As what could possibly be worse than an RPG born from a cult? That's right, an RPG born of fanfiction. Wraithu, Wraithu, from enchantment to fulfillment. Wraithu is the 2005 RPG based on the Wraithu Mythos series of books by Storm Constantine, taking place in the same setting and carrying the same general themes. The game started out as only a fanfiction guide before evolving into a fully fledged official project featuring the author. You can tell that it's official because it's being sold for $40. $40! The last 2 games that we looked at were free! But maybe the price is for the presentation. After all, we have a lovely photo on the front featuring a dagger with a flower in its shadow. Very artsy, much enjoy. But what the heck is even in this game, and what the heck is a Wraithu? Well, from what I can gather, the Wraithu that you play as in the game are a new race of tall, slender, hermaphroditic mutants that are able to transform other male humans into Wraithu by way of a blood transfusion.
Oh, good. It's the 50 Shades of Grey of tabletop RPGs. Hey.
Right, of course. Huh? This setting and entire process is conveyed in the prologue story when a nerd character is bullied by some jocks until one of these hair metal looking morons kills all of the jocks and then turns the nerd into one of these Wraithu, where I think he then hooks up with his old best friend who was also turned into one a couple weeks ago. Right, of course. What? Basically what is going on here is that humanity is in decline and the Wraithu are slowly taking over. And instead of playing as the humans fighting against the threat, you are playing as the Wraithu trying to finish off the last of the humans. Also, the Wraithu are super special awesome and like the humans totally don't even stand a chance. Also, the Wraithu are constantly hooking up with each other because they totally don't mess with any commitments. Also, the Wraithu are like so much more advanced even though they live in tribes and huts. Aren't these guys super cool? You know, for how awesome the Wraithu are and how much cooler they are than these stupid little idiot humans, they're kind of extremely unlikable. They're rude to each other, they're extremely flippant, they don't care about anything, they're lazy, they're annoying. Why in the world would I want to roleplay as one of these things? I mean, for real, do you want to try and guess one of the Wraithu's biggest weaknesses? Nihilism. What a joke. This is a group of beings that is actively trying to exterminate the human race worldwide. How did you make them so lame? The game itself is nothing special. It's your standard D20 system that bases actions off of stats. But there is one interesting part, which is for some reason the amount of magic that you can have is directly tied to how much you weigh. But since all Wraithu are very slender by their nature, your total magical power is going to be determined by how tall you are. Huge apology to my short Wraithu kings. I know it's tough out there right now, but if you just stick with it, things will get better, I promise. No part of the actual gameplay presents itself as particularly egregious, but everything about the setting and how things work in the world is either creepy, half-baked, or borderline nonsensical. Example, did you know that while wearing chainmail armor, you are 100% protected from all damage given by flamethrowers? Do not try this at home. Oh, and by the way, remember from my previous description that
That would
Wraithu can
explain
only
why
convert male humans into
in Minecraft
via a blood transfusion.
chainmail was made of
Women
fire.
cannot become Wraithu via normal means, so they don't have
Back
a
in
lot
the
to
day.
do in the story. Luckily, our glorious author has thought of this and has penned a workaround, as it is encouraged by the game that the remaining men on Earth treat the remaining women as Also on the topic
Fucking
of why did you
yikes.
make me read that, when you change into a Wraithu, your appendage also transforms as well, with it now resembling something closer to a tall, bloomed plant. So if you come across any flowers on this adventure, I'd be wary about what those could really be. Oh no. And that is Wraithu from Enchantment to Fulfillment. Overall, not a great game in and of itself, but when you add in all of the extra materials and the setting and the characters, holy cow, I never want to look at this again. It's also managed to put me off of ever pursuing the source material entirely, which people who have read both are saying is not nearly as bad as the game makes it out to be. I mean, good on Storm for working with the fans to expand this into new media, but sometimes you've gotta say no. Before we reach the point of no return with our remaining titles, I think that now would be a good time to have a nice palate cleanser with some honorable mentions. These titles are not actually bad games, but their existence is really funny, so I wanted to give them a quick mention. A massive thank you to Alice Katarina for sending these my way. About time we had some stupid funny. What do we got here? Bloodsucker: The Angst. A satirical vampire RPG where you play as angsty teens living in the new vamp world. If you manage to increase your angst level, you get better stats and more dice. Kill Puppies for Satan. A satirical dark power RPG where you play as a bunch of Satanists trying to accomplish a goal for Satan, gaining power along the way for being cruel to cute things. The characters that you play as in the game are portrayed as massive losers, and it's implied that Satan gives them power out of pity. Included in your table is a stat for how many people hate you. Macho Women with Guns. A satirical sci-fi RPG where you play as either buff, bat-winged demon women or warrior Harley-Davidson nuns, both of whom wield large firearms. The game was designed in under 2 weeks and immediately became the publisher's most popular game. And
Publisher has some good taste, I see.
finally, Maid. A satirical maid RPG where players play as a maid trying to serve and protect the master of the mansion. Maids can get up to all kinds of wacky antics, like doing laundry, fighting the Yakuza, or using their built-in cyborg enhancements to rescue the master from the Netherrealm. This was the first ever Japanese RPG to be translated and released in English. And I think that covers all of the honorable mentions. Anybody else? Nope, okay, I think we're good then. Remaining in the collection that I have for you today are 6 total games, each one belonging to one of 2 groups: the original Unholy Trinity and the modern Unholy Trinity. Yes, the power dynamics within the worst TTRPG hierarchy are constantly changing. The original Unholy Trinity held power for 6 years until it was usurped for the title by the current triumvirate in 2002. So let's take a look at that original Unholy Trinity and see what allowed them to rise to power in the first place. Starting off with the original worst TTRPG of all time, The Spawn of Fashawn. I don't care about anything else. That name is fun to say. That might be the best part of this game. The Spawn of Fashawn is the 1981 fantasy RPG that was...
Man, that title sounds like a really lame spin-off off of Aladdin or something.
was self-published by Kirby Davis, starting off strong by selling an electric 17 total copies during its original run. Hey, fully original creation and they sold it for less than Wraithu? I just really hope that it outperformed that. Spawn of Fashawn is really more of a system, but one that has everything that you need to run your own game. Monsters, combat, character creation, heck, it even gives you a full-on world that you can use for your first adventure. The mystical, far-off land of Booze Boodle. I don't know what people are complaining about. These are the greatest names I've ever seen in a game. Well, let's try to look past the awesome naming scheme and take a look at the game itself. Starting us off, the organization is horrific. Every sin you can imagine is taking place in this book. References are only made to generic terms, references to rules include references to other rules, and none of the tables are numbered or placed in a cohesive order. There is also no table of contents or index. My guy really said, "Oh, you want to see a rule? Go find it." This makes doing anything for the first time extremely painful, as a lot of actions reference other rules and how they connect, but they won't provide a page or section number. Just a name for what it is referring to, and with no guide at all on where that rule can be, it is going to be an entire adventure to learn how to set up your time in Booze Boodle. Once you do figure out how to figure out the rules, then you can start making a character. Pick a boy or girl. This is an important decision to make, because female characters will automatically start out with half as many dice for their strength, constitution, and hit point rolls. But never fret, as they also get 50% more dice on their charisma rolls. See, it all cancels out, you know, PEMDAS. No time to be mad about that though, as we're moving on to the tables. Or rather, the ones that just straight up aren't finished. Yes, several tables in the Spawn of Fashawn have a bunch of values that lead absolutely nowhere. Like how all female characters must roll on the Destiny table due to having the destined mental illness, but there not being any actual Destiny table anywhere in the game. What it tells you to do for these is fill them in yourself. Go nuts, go wild. Reality is your oyster and it's happy hour. Why did I buy the book if I'm filling it out myself? Speaking of things that don't exist, magic. There is none. No spells, no effects, there is just straight up no magic in this world at all. Hey Cam, give me a fantasy RPG. You got
sounds like a unique setting, but
hold the magic and hold the adventure. Hey, give me a fantasy RPG with nothing. Nothing? But okay, there's gotta be something to do in this game. How about we get into a fight? A brawl, a bash, a good old-fashioned snickerdoodle. Put up your dukes, boys. Who's going first? Well, to determine initiative, you simply need to add 2d6 to each fighter's detect level, which requires you to flip to the senses table, which will then showcase the number that you add to your die roll for everyone in the fight. In D&D, initiative is found by rolling one die. But now it's time to fight it out, the process of which Roger Wilcox describes to us in his beaming review. First, you need to find the reflex comparison, an equation to see if either fighter gets bonuses for having better reflexes. Then you determine if you want to make a light, normal, or heavy attack sword and sandal style. Then you determine what area of the enemy you want to hit, head, torso, or limbs. Unlike Dead Earth, it is harder to hit the smaller targets. Then you roll a d20, consult your modifiers, and get the number you use to determine a hit. Before you see if you hit though, you need to give the opponent a chance to either parry or dodge. Whichever one you choose, consult the respective table, each containing subtables based on what you are fighting. Then you see if any equipment your enemy has impacts their chance to parry or dodge, then roll to see if they parry or dodge. Now you can determine if your strike hit by cross-referencing the weapon with the opposing armor class on the combat results table to get the number you needed to roll to hit. Add your reflex modifier to increase or decrease that hit number. If the number you rolled is equal to or higher than that number, you hit the target. I refuse to cover damage calculation. Go read the review if you're up for some more brain melt.
Got all that? Don't worry, neither do I.
You have to go through all of this every single time you attack or are attacked. Who are the 17 psychopaths that bought this? Sorry, 17 on the original run, as after our boy Kirby here learned that the game was gathering a sizable ironic following, he offered up some reprints in 1998 for anyone who wanted a physical edition. On top of that, in 2021, he released the 40th anniversary edition of the game, including the foreword from the 98 reprints, a new look at the game's history, and quote, a long missing table of contents and index. If you keep it out of the original, you can add it back in later as a feature. Gosh, doesn't
Oh hey, they found the Konami motto.
this entire experience sound like a freaking blast? Well, good news! You can still buy this gosh darn thing straight off of Amazon. I cannot believe this thing is still alive. Most of these vanish off the web within the same year they go up, and yet here's Spawn of Fashawn still selling physical copies 44 years later. That right there, that's the power of a great name. But not every member of the original Trinity was able to survive for this long. As a perfect example of fleeting power comes from the youngest member of that group, Sinzar. Dude, what is up with these names? The Spawn of Fashawn, Sinzar. They are tearing it up out here. Sinzar, role-playing for the next millennium, alternatively titled Sinzar Break Through the Dream Barrier If You Dare, is the 1996 fantasy RPG where you attempt to have a lot of fun by being really cool. No joke, that is the main aim of the game. The center goal behind Sinzar is to become as powerful as you can possibly be, becoming both stronger and cooler until you one day ascend to the level of a god, who then goes on to become so powerful that he can best other gods. This entire thing is pretty much just power fantasy the game. They even make it a point to insult other fantasy role-playing games where, quote, the player character begins as a total dweeb, unable to survive even the most basic encounters. Look, I'm not saying that I agree with them, but I've played a level 1 wizard before, so I'll just say, I get it. The cover conveys this thought process pretty much perfectly. I mean, take a look at this fine, upstanding young gentleman. Why, he's on his way to help out at the local soup kitchen. Looking over the rules, they could be better. The language is confusing sometimes, and they fall victim to the introducing terms before explaining them trap, but the mechanics seem to work pretty well together, all things considered. There are also no massive ruling holes or unfinished bits like the other games on this list. And while the endgame after becoming an immortal can get dull after a while, there is a general emphasis on doing whatever causes the players to have the most power and the most fun. So with this in mind, why is this game hated so much? Well, one reason that most people take a disliking to Sinzar is that it's just so dang full of itself. That total dweebs line from earlier doesn't quite sit right when a lot of the people you're looking to have play your game are the fans of those other RPGs, especially when you back that zinger up with, well, that's not the case at all in the Sinzar system, where no wimps are allowed. Aw man, not again. The main reason that the game got the metaphorical pan to the head treatment though was due to the game's marketing, as thanks to the actions of those who made it, Sinzar got off to a pretty poor first impression. See, when you make a new game, you gotta find a way to get some eyes on it or else it's just going to fade away into obscurity. And in their attempt to do this, the creators of Sinzar pretty much turned their entire target market against them. Going back many a decade, there was this thing called Usenet, which was a place that people could log on to in order to post chats or threads about specific topics. That is the best description that I can give. There's a lot more to it, but I wasn't alive at the time to use it. We're focused on Sinzar here. One of the communities on here was rec.games.frp.misc, which was basically a group where people could discuss tabletop games and, most frequently, the burgeoning TTRPG scene of the late 90s. Sometime in 1996, a bunch of the creators of Sinzar would get onto rec.games and start talking about their game, asking if people have heard about it,
yes,
played
good
it,
old-fashioned
liked it, bought it, and
astroturfing.
overall hyping up the game in an attempt to generate buzz around the newly released Sinzar. Very keyly, doing so without disclosing themselves as the creators. Now, it took me quite a while to be able to get access to
Because, as we all know, astroturfing totally works and has not totally backfired numerous times. Just ask Sony.
this forum, as shocker, Usenet was shut down over a decade ago, but luckily Google Groups was able to recover some of the threads in there. And while most of the creator messages are lost to time, I was able to find one by a Bridget that shows what this kind of message would look like. Hi, I heard someone mention a new RPG called Sinzar and was wondering if anybody knows anything about it. Have any people done reviews of it? Class-based or skill-based? Combat or story-oriented? Setting? I'm curious. Well, this effort did end up generating some buzz around the game, but it turned out that when people started looking through it, they really weren't too impressed with what they saw. And after people started hating on it, the creators started defending their game pretty heatedly. Now, people already did not enjoy the blatant advertising on their forums, and they especially did not enjoy getting attacked by the creators for giving their opinions, so they started hating on the game even more. The tide was turned again, however, when a bunch of independent Sinzar fans joined the conversation and started insulting those who were being mean to such a great game.
So it's basically the driver gig scandal, except without the people being paid to, the game magazine actually being paid to show the game.
Game. It was then discovered that this merry band of heroes were just the creators of the game again, using freshly made alternative accounts. Coming to your own rescue without realizing that people can check the age of the account, the post history, and the email associated with it. Not the best idea. After this was discovered, things reached their boiling point, and by April of 1997, you have lines upon lines of people hating on Sinzar, detailed lists of all the creators' fake accounts, detailed logs of all the creators' shenanigans, one doxing even, and just some of the most condensed hatred toward one product that I've seen from what's supposed to be the target audience since the original live-action Sonic. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I don't think this panned out quite the way they wanted. So with the world's worst first impression out of the way, Sinzar quickly became legendary online for how much people despised it, officially earning its spot as the final member of the original Unholy Trinity. Did the game deserve this distinction? Probably not. Did the product deserve this distinction? You could certainly make an argument. Overall, Sinzar is a less than stellar RPG that was dragged down to the depths due to the actions of its creators and them alone. Not one of the worst by far, but definitely one of the most loathed. But if the spawn of Fashawn was the one who laid the foundation, and Sinzar was the one to complete the trio, then who was that final member that made up the original Unholy Trinity? Well, it's another crazy title with a word starting with an S. Ladies and gentlemen, the world of Cinnabar. I guarantee you, the world of Cinnabon would have been better received. The World of Cinnabar is the 1991 science fiction RPG that sees people travel the stars, undertaking glorious adventures, and is best described by Darren McLennan as, quote, an endless, hideous rant that's written in a language that's indistinguishable from English, but which is not English. You can always count on McLennan to really set the stage. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what is this Cinnabar? Well, I'm glad you thought. You see, Cinnabar is the enormous hollowed-out corpse of the planet Mars that has been converted into a world ship and flies through the cosmos carrying the remnants of humanity. There is also a massive werestorm that ravages the planet constantly, which was put there by Space Jesus in order to protect the population. What do you think this is? Two truths and a lie? They lead with that. That's your introduction. You will come to find that there are a lot of strange goings-on in Cinnabar, both the world ship and the game itself. For example, did you know that a lot of the story elements on your adventure are determined by the DM rolling dice to see if something happens? Not them planning out the story ahead of time? Yeah, the guide gives you a percentage chance of 2 outcomes, you roll to see what happens, and then you just have to make up the following events as you go. Hope you've been sharpening up those improv skills. But this is just a chance for the game to allow you to use your imagination. The game is very keen on allowing you to use your imagination whenever possible. It even asks you right on the back of the box if you are, quote, frustrated with gaming systems that limit not only your imagination, but your character abilities as well? Well, come on down to the world of Cinnabar, where we'll make you even more frustrated by doing that exact same thing! See, most characteristics for your character are determined by rolling dice. We wouldn't want you to have to come up with any of your own character's features. That would limit your imagination. This dice determination is especially true with the classes that you can choose from, as most of the classes in the game are locked behind stat prerequisites determined by your initial stat rolls. Didn't hit the right numbers? You can't play as that class. Want to play as that awesome biosynthetic warrior that you saw in the book? Sorry, buddy, looks like your strength roll didn't hit the prereqs. Wouldn't want to limit your imagination. Good lord, I can't even begin to cover this in the normal way I would talk about one of these. There are more than 460 pages in this thing, and each one keeps getting crazier. As such, I will be showcasing the points of interest that I think could give you a better grasp on what is going on in Cinnabar. As if I tried to get you through it like the doc does, we'd be here all day. During character creation, you roll 6 dice to determine stats, and if you roll 5 20s, you are allowed to start the game as an immortal born, beginning the game as a type of being that cannot die in any way that matters. Congratulations, you get to play as a fungus. Once level 45, if you didn't start the game off as one, you can attempt a quest to become an immortal. After that, once you reach level 70, you can attempt a quest to become a demigod, and once you reach level 100, you can attempt a quest to become a full-on god. Gods in this universe get a bunch of cool stuff, but are described as gods because they have access to god power. So these guys are really closer to a Super Saiyan god rather than the actual. Allegedly, the max level that you can reach in Cinnabar is 600, which, considering you reach godhood at level 100, you are going to have a lot of time on your godly hands. Skills not only require skill points to earn, but also require money, time, and prerequisites of other skills, all based on your class. Some of the incredibly useful skills at your disposal include accounting, banking, basket weaving, marine biology, cinematography, comedian, criminology,
You know, God stuff.
dancing, aquatic demolitions, farming, glassblowing, jeweler, landscaping, massaging, mime, motion picture directing, piloting skateboards, pottery, scuba diving, sewing, ventriloquism, weight training, and wood carving. You know, the essentials. Speaking of those classes, here are a couple of highlights. Amazons on Mars are all women and carry a 30% chance to be very good looking. All archers come equipped with a crippling gambling addiction. Found my class. Biosynthecyborgs are biosynthetic cybernetic organisms, which means that they are robots but with all of the same stuff that humans have, but better. You need to roll 3 20s when making your character to unlock this class, so I'd hold off on imagining what you could possibly do with it. Mutants are all exceedingly good at hang gliding. Tigers are either superheroes or villains depending on what you rolled on alignment. Costumes are included as well. Some classes in the game have access to certain types of magic because why not? We've already hollowed out Mars after all. Spell levels go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, and 50 because of course they do. Here are some highlights. Sphere of Destruction, a 3rd level spell that instantly disintegrates any creature that can't teleport out of it. As you may have picked up, the balance in this one is a little wonky. Teleportation, a 10th level spell that carries a chart based on your chances to teleport wrong. If you end up teleporting inside of a solid object, you immediately die. Suspension, a 15th level spell that suspends all movement in a 500-foot circle around you down to the molecular level. Flames of Visor, 40th level spell that lets your in-game character ask the real-world DM one question. Star Weird, 30th level spell lets you change the color of the effing sun. Wow, there sure is a lot on offer here. Yeah, that's probably because the game goes extremely in-depth and overcomplicated on pretty much every aspect, but none of the mechanics are actually fleshed out in a way that makes the game deep. Everything is just there. For instance, enjoy this.
Yeah, I don't even know what the whole point of any of this magic is. This kind of feels like they just ran out of ideas.
Entire effing physical properties of materials chart, which includes density, hardness, melting temperature, and pounds per cubic inch to deform. Or have an entire gosh dang starship built for you for like $1 billion, cause what else are you gonna spend the money on? 204,498,977 Red Baron pizzas? Man, I freaking wish. Imagine yourself sorting through the 25 different damage categories that could stem from combat. Or how about the awesome charts that are all vital to the gameplay experience, like the speed and distance of thrown objects chart, the falling speed chart, the body hit locations chart, the body hit locations if you have wings chart, and who could forget the moving silently on different types of terrain chart. Oh, and just to make sure that we don't frustrate you by limiting your imagination, any and all house rules are explicitly not allowed per the game's rulebook. You must play the game rules as written. Also, don't forget about the flying bears with laser eyes, those are also here. You know, on Mars. Can't believe I forgot to mention those. Now, as much as I am dogging on the game,
Yeah, so did I. That sounds like
mess
fucking cool idea.
there is a lot of stuff in here that does sound really cool. But believe it or not, despite how expansive everything is, what with all the things transpiring, it ends up becoming pretty shallow due to none of the stuff really operating together at all. They've thrown an egregious amount of spaghetti at the wall in the hopes that a bunch of it would stick, but they forgot that when you do this, you are still left with a ton of spaghetti on the floor. What you end up with is a document with a couple of cool ideas and a game that
even
hardly
throws
functions
spaghetti
in an
anymore.
enjoyable way due to all the bad ideas still being in there. I tried my best to showcase why this is, but if I couldn't get it done, then this quote from McLennan should sum it up pretty neatly. He took the worst aspects of every game ever made, threw them into this game, and then turned up the suck meter until it broke off. Say what you want, the man has a way with words. And that should cover the whole of the Unholy Trinity. The first Unholy Trinity. The one that got overthrown by the new one made up of games that are all worse than them. Jeez Louise, this is gonna be torturous. Before we condemn ourselves to unending misery though, I want to briefly touch on the only TTRPG that has attempted to make a power play for a spot in that trio. That being the hip new kid on the block, MyFarog. MyFarog is the 2015 mythic fantasy role-playing game. Wait a minute, sorry, MyFarog stands for Mythic Fantasy Role-Playing Game. My bad. You know, I was going to make fun of the generic name, but then I remembered the name of the most popular game about exploring dungeons and fighting dragons, so I think I'll let this one slide. That is the only thing that I'll let slide from this one though, as this game was penned by ex-Nazi and convicted murderer Varg Vikernes, and contains all of the material you would expect from that rap sheet.
Yeah, you did not mishear him. It actually was as written by a convicted Nazi. And sadly, it's not the only one written by a controversial person. And controversial is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, poorly veiled racism, political messaging. Look, I really don't want to get too deep into this one because everything in here that you could point to as bad, one of the Trinity does it worse. It's legit just not worth talking about because everything it's doing was done more offensively over a decade ago. I'm out here looking at all these stereotypes and going, yeah, but it's no Fatal. I'm not wasting my breath as we've got worse stuff coming up, although I will point out two things that do set it apart from the unholy members. Firstly, MyFarog is, for some reason, available on Tabletop Simulator. I am not responsible for this, I've put some weird stuff on there, I know this one is not mine. Or at least I thought that this was a unique trait, but it turns out that Fatal is also already on Tabletop, because sure, why not? And two, this is the only game I've seen go partially in depth about the benefits of using moss as toilet paper, so hey, at least it's got that going for it. And with that, I can hold off the tide no longer, as it's now time to delve into the modern Unholy Trinity. Now equipped with the knowledge that a game written by an actual convicted murderer never even had a chance of making it into the group. I have already alluded to one of the members, and longtime viewers should already be aware of why he's here. You know him, you hate him, everybody give a rousing round of nothing for Fatal! Aw, there he is, what a little scamp. You wanna know something crazy? I think Fatal might be the weakest of the three. But no time to worry about that, it's been over a year and a half since we last talked about him, so I think it's time to hit a quick refresher. What is Fatal? I'm very glad you asked that. Ryan Keene, why don't you go ahead and tell us in song?
Fatal is the best role-playing game that there could be. Legacy adventure to adult luxury.
It's all downhill from here. Fatal, also known as Fantasy Adventure to Adult Lechery, until they changed it to From Another Time, Another Land in an attempt to save face, is the 2002 fantasy RPG that
Trolls
features some
remorse.
of the most disgusting and depraved mechanics
Still
to
won't
ever
save it.
hit the pages of a role-playing game. In addition to those mechanics just being overall not very good. I've been trying to think of ways for how I can properly showcase all of Fatal's quirks to you so that you hate the title as much as I do, and I think there's really only one way that I can do that. We do an ad! Hey, buddy, you look like the kind of guy that could really use a good TTRPG. I do currently not own one. Well, lucky for you, we've got one right here. Introducing Fatal! Let me ask you something. Do you enjoy reading? Sporadically and inconsistently? Well, then you will enjoy the over 900 pages of rules on display. That's nearly 3 times the amount found in the campaign for North Africa. But don't just read it once. The overcomplexity of the rules will ensure plenty of rereading potential when you inevitably have to double back. Wow, this'll take me weeks to get through. But that's not all. Enjoy mechanics that function so well, they transcend logic and reason. Is the maximum speech rate of your character too low? Then just roll your average speech rate to be higher. Problem solved. Wait, speech rate is a stat? Why? Because Fatal is deep. Learn all of the intricacies of your character by generating very specific traits, like eye color, hair thickness, pee strength, nipple size, and the circumference of your butthole, all determined at random by rolling dice for over 3 hours. My what circumference?
Okay, Fatal just as someone who really hates TRPGs, or at the very least the Book of Erotic Fantasy, or whatever the fuck it was called, because it sounds like this whole thing was made by someone who hated the very concept of TRPGs. And trust me, it only gets more batshit insane from there.
But wait, there's more. Fancying a challenge? Fatal aims to foster a contemptuous relationship between DM and player, with both encouraged to make the other's gameplay as miserable as possible. Wow, just like Mario Party. Exactly like Mario Party. Immerse your merry band of misfits into the dark and disturbing world of Fatal through the intricate world building, featuring the new and revolutionary racial hatred chart.
What?
Now included
God
with
damn it,
pre-made
what
slurs.
the fuck is this
The
shit?
huh?
Well, oh wait, God, they were actually serious. What the fuck?
Let's hear a word from our creators. Fantasy gamers have never seen this degree of historical and mythological accuracy. It is the goal of Fatal Games to astound and thrill those who seek a role-playing game based on accuracy, realism, and detail. Another faulty conclusion drawn by Darren. Where is dating included? But don't forget the reason we rolled for all those orifices earlier, as Fatal has rules upon rules for getting involved in some action. Yeah, I think the last thing that I want to do with my friends is get involved with some consensual action. Oh, well then you'll fit right in. What do you mean by that? Fatal! Forget about this abomination, lickety-split. On sale nowhere, so don't even bother. Freaking Fatal. Well, that was fun. Did you have fun? Good, time to ruin it.
Yeah, this is a real tabletop RPG. And like they said, it only gets downhill from there.
If you didn't pick up on that particular ending line, there is a lot of stuff in this game that I am not too keen on talking about because I'm here for fun bad, not ruin my whole day bad. But for completion's sake, and so you don't have to go looking through 900 pages for yourself, if you want to see the content I'm talking about, I will return to my old bag of tricks. For exactly 1 frame, there will be a flash of all of the heinous material that I don't want to cover for you to pause and read. Just like before, I highly recommend not pausing to read it. Nothing is worth the risk.
And I just meant it. Yeah, probably for the best.
To those who didn't bother, I applaud your self-control. Now it's time to get back to the fun bad! Yeah! One of the more underexplored parts of Fatal is the game's magic system. There are, of course, a ton of terrible things to be found here, just like everywhere else, but the spell list does contain some spells that I think are pretty funny, and has the one good idea that I think the game had, the magical misfires. Let's take a peek at each, starting with
Yeah, I'll admit, as someone who saw the spell list of spell backfires, I will admit it. It's at least a little bit funny. Too bad the rest of the game is absolute dog shit.
The spells. Here are some of my favorites from the list, with most of them being included due to just how petty the wizard must be to even have these. I cast Aching Feet, Banish Allergy, Bestow Aching Back, Bestow Aura, Bestow Intoxication, Bestow Leprosy, Bestow Loss of Appetite, Bestow Eon. This one literally ages the target by millions of years when you touch them. Business Spell! Profits of a target business increase by 10% per caster level. Detect Inferiority. Force Fart. Near-death experience. Putrid Portrait. Literally just draws a bad caricature of the target which makes them sad. Recipe for skin disease? Test of pregnancy. To keep bugs out of the house. And finally, I cast Unattractive. It just makes the target ugly. Make sure you're careful when casting all of these incredibly useful spells, though, because if you biff your attempt, then you might just get a magical misfire. Magical misfires are what occur when you fail a cast or use a spell incorrectly. With instead of nothing happening, you will roll on the magical misfire table and watch on in horror as a completely random effect happens. There are quite a few of these effects that could take place, more specifically 2,000 of them, requiring both a D10 and D1000 roll to determine which one you get. If you think the D1000 roll is bad, in character creation, they have you make a D1,000,000 roll to see if you become a freak of nature. Have fun with that. I'm feeling up for a challenge today, so we're gonna read through all 2,000 of them. What's the first one on offer? 1. 2 gay ogres appear within 3 D10 feet, and okay, we're gonna be jumping around just like with the spells. I think that is a much better idea. 4. A gerbil escapes from the target's rump. All who see this are stunned for 1 round. 21. All armor within 3 D10 feet shrinks
I'd probably be stunned if I saw that too. Sure.
by 50% in size. Characters inside will die of constriction. 391. All characters within 3 D10 feet acquire depression. 508. All characters within 3 D10 feet are now naked and covered with honey. 540. All characters within 3 D10 feet become able to hear earthworms crawling. 633. All characters within 3 D10 feet die from lightning bolts from the sky, except the caster. 681. All characters within 3 D10 feet grow a fully functional tongue from their forehead. 716. All characters within 3 D10 feet magically climb the nearest tree and magically fall from the top. 743. All characters within 3 D10 feet now believe that any character who is taller must die. 749. All characters within 3 D10 feet now believe that the world is a rhombus. 945. All characters within 3 D10 feet transmogrify into air and die, but seem to vanish. 970.
Yeah, I'm convinced the person who made this tabletop RPG hates tabletop RPGs.
All characters within 3 D10 feet will now far silently, no matter how hard they push. I believe that one is meant to be fart. 1066. In the nearest community, children rule and adults are slaves for 3 D10 days. 1136. The caster hallucinates that it is the opposite season and dresses appropriately. 1143. The caster hallucinates that they are an orange and every character is trying to peel them. 1169. The caster must force broccoli into each ear or they become irate and scream until they can. 1208. The caster teleports into the cottage of an arguing peasant family. 1267. The local government actually cares about its citizens for 3 D10 hours and tries to help them. 1411. The nearest king seeks out the caster so that they may be thanked praised, dismembered, and eaten. 1987. Whenever in the presence of a potential mate, the nearest male howls like a wolf, and 1705, this spell is cast. Fatal. Fatal is a 10th level fire spell that instantly kills all life on the planet the caster is on, including the caster. In other words, this is a spell that will instantly end the game. Oh wow, my favorite spell by far. Wow, that was a whole lot more fun. Almost makes you forget what we are dealing with here. Don't worry though, if you want to be reminded as to the horrors of Fatal, here's another one frame trick of the spells and misfires that I couldn't include. Awful. I do genuinely think that the magical misfire system would be a great addition to a comedy-focused RPG. Like, imagine failing a roll to light a torch and your hat turns into a group of squirrels that won't leave you alone. There is a lot of potential here. But the limited defenders of Fatal stick by the game and say that if you just give it a chance, you'll see that it's really not bad at all. Well, you see, people already have, and it definitely is. Case 1. Content creator Zig Minthotep detailed each and every process you would need to go through in order to properly create one Fatal character. It takes 327 rolls on a total of 654 dice, with the average character creation time being somewhere around 3 hours. Case 2. A detailed account of a group attempting to play through an intro adventure. They eventually had to throw the entire thing away when they realized that every encounter in the game has more detailed conditions for how to force yourself upon and enslave enemies than it does for straight up killing them. Case 3. A multi-post long campaign journal of one person who talked their friends into playing the game without informing them beforehand of what Fatal is. That is diabolical! The group never actually ends up reaching the explicit combat content, as before they even can, the players quit playing the game entirely due to how unbalanced it is. This happened because the soap maker character realized that it would take him 4 years to earn the same amount of experience that the herbalist got for healing 2 people. Needless to say, Fatal is appalling both from a content and a gameplay perspective, with any half-decent ideas that the game squirts out being buried by mountains of absolute garbage. To send this travesty off once again, here is the single greatest line that has ever been dropped in a review. Saying that this game should be burned is an insult to fire.
Jesus Christ, I couldn't have summarized it better myself.
And once again, in regards to the modern Unholy Trinity, I think that Fatal might be the best of the 3. Let's move on to our next title then and see just how bad we can really get. Catered for your displeasure, it is one of the single most mentioned names when I ask for the worst of the worst. Ladies and gentlemen, Racial Holy War. Hey Cam, you up for going out tonight? Aw, sorry I can't. I'm recording audio for another game I'm covering. Oh, what are you covering this time? Uno. People have been requesting that I cover Racial Holy War ever since I first covered Fatal.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Let that sink in. This exists. And its cover also plagiarizes The Hills That Have Eyes. I just realized, holy fucking shit, this thing is absolute trash.
Year and a half of hearing about it, and I've purposefully avoided looking into it at all until I thought that I was ready to take it on. With a name like this and a reputation like that, you know there is going to be some real heinous stuff in here. So let's take a glance at what this thing has going on under the hood for a quick preview. I think I might have bitten off a little too much here. So back to Fatal.
Yeah, I'm gonna believe you on that.
Fatal has a ton of terrible things in it. Shocking content, this or that, stuff that has no place in any kind of game. But Fatal was, at the end of the day, meant to establish some kind of setting or cause a shock value that would get people talking about it. To my knowledge, the creators don't actually believe in or engage in those activities in real life, they're just trying to sell a game. That's what I thought that something with as absurd a title as Racial Holy War would be. A shock value game meant to get people talking about it to sell copies. That idea was incorrect. This game, which will herein be referred to as This Game, was created by a real supremacist group to convey their real thoughts and feelings on the page, which is very evident by the way they describe everything. For instance,
Yeah. That is... If you think that's bad, trust me, it gets worse.
when Fatal hits you with the racial stereotype armor, it dances around the meat of the language, just giving you enough to maybe catch on to which group they're referring to. Here, they just straight up drop the old Laura Schlesinger not 11 times, but 39. So in lieu of spreading actual propaganda on Maine, I am only going to be talking about two things from this game. What they aimed to do, and what they actually did. Because believe it or not, with unlimited creative control and a system they built themselves, they biffed their own intended design and message to a comical degree. Here's what is supposed to happen in this game. You play as a member of the White Warriors attempting to save the world from the steep population increase of other groups. You can do this in a variety of ways, mostly through violence or recruiting other warriors to your side. So the warriors here are supposed to be facing an uphill battle, but with their apparent inherent superiority, their victory is all but guaranteed. Their words, not mine. Except, small problem with that, the warriors are actually practically useless in any and all situations. See, when you toss out your very first game as more of a statement and less of a game, you can end up missing a couple key details that make a big impact. And if you couldn't tell by now, we are in fact dealing with a group that could very easily miss out on a few key details. For instance, firearms are a major tool that you would expect to use on your adventures, and based on your stats and choice of weapon, you can get a number of accuracy modifiers to add to your hit chance. Fortunately for everyone else, there is an issue with this, as nowhere in the document does it tell you what your base accuracy number is. You straight up don't have one. This means that your entire accuracy value will be based around the modifiers, which means that at no point in this game will any of your shots have more than a 25% chance to hit, regardless of your level. Your warrior is basically spending the entire game shooting with their eyes closed. I really don't like their odds. But again, fortunately for everyone else, it gets even worse for them. In order to really hammer home their message, the creators gave all of their racial caricatures similar powers, such as additional kung fu strikes or bribery, the whole -5 yards. Well, with this feature in place, you must be wondering what completely overpowered effect the warriors must have at their disposal. And I will admit, I was taken aback when I saw it. They don't do anything.
Yep. So not only is it absolutely offensive, it is absolutely detrimental to their cause. Good.
Game gives the players no special abilities in a game where one group can get up to 6 additional attacks in one turn. Ranged or hand-to-hand, the warriors are completely outmatched in all forms of combat. They are useless. Of course, that's only if your warriors ever actually get into a fight, which is very unlikely once again due to the game's own rules. A key part of the game is the intimidation level of your group, which can grant you certain bonuses or debuffs depending on how much more you have than your opponent. Well, the intimidation factor is very closely tied to how many people you have in the party. More people equals more total stats. And if your total intimidation is 5 times higher than your opponent's, They are forced to run away out of fear. Now, the game specifically states that the warriors are a small group now in the minority, so you will be outnumbered in pretty much every battle, as is already the case in most RPG fights. So in every combat encounter, regardless of how armed to the teeth you are, you will at the minimum have your already low accuracy reduced further, or will straight up book it at every opportunity. So to recap, the undefeatable force that makes up the warriors cannot shoot the broadside of a barn, have no special traits that help them at all, and turn tail at even the slightest amount of confrontation. Great job, guys. I'm sure the science
So, like, real life Neos. Gotta say, I really appreciate this game for its accuracy.
lineups will be pouring in any day now. I cannot think of a worse way that these people would have wanted to depict themselves. They look outright pathetic out there. If I didn't know any better, I would say that the product was making fun of these guys, but based on the language and the fact that the leader of their entire organization pinned this, they really thought they had something here. Yeah, a nice hot and ready steaming pile of trash. Dig in. They didn't even get screwed by having to adhere to a previous system. This is their own custom system. If you build something from scratch just to make yourself look good and you still look like failures, my guy, you have got to reevaluate something. These people are straight up morons. Arguably worse content than Fatal, definitely worse construction than Fatal. Heck, it's not even as fun to make fun of as Fatal. Just an overall miserable product that I cannot wait to forget. Regardless of who you think is worse, though, these two have got the content side of the Unholy Trinity locked up nice and neat. Ain't nobody touching these two when it comes to their speciality. But with that being said, what could the third member of the trio possibly have to justify its spot amongst these juggernauts of jidiocy? Well, believe it or not, the third game is not actually in here due to any shocking content. Of course, there are some controversial bits, that's to be expected, but those are not what earn the game, it's reputation. The reason that the third game is on here is instead due to it achieving a distinction that no other game on this list has even come close to reaching. Because our last game, it is totally incomprehensible. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Hybrid. Hybrid is the free 1996 RPG that was solo created by Matthew C++ and is best described as, quote, the insane ramblings of a madman. Knowing what I know now, I think that...
Yeah, that review is very on point, by the way.
lunatic would be a better descriptor. The game could be found on its own page of someone else's website who agreed to host it for Matthew, and the only way to find it now is by using the Wayback Machine, which at this point I've become pretty dang good at using. The fact that Hybrid is not only mentioned alongside titles like Fatal, but is considered worthy enough to stand alongside it in the Trinity caught my attention immediately. As nowhere was I seeing any mentions of heinous content, just that the game was really, really bad. This intrigued me greatly, as anything that can be placed in the same wheelhouse as these two for just being that bad is quite the prospect. So I began my search for the game, and lo and behold, EA had the full website from 2002 ready for me to ingest. Now, expecting some truly unbelievable stuff here, I decided to do this one a little different and write the segment as I looked through the website instead of after. That way you could experience every event in the same order that I did for maximum brain melt, and I am very glad that I did that because if I tried to write this down after the fact, it might have driven me completely insane. I'd recommend strapping yourself in for this one, as Intro Cam here knows what's coming, and unfortunately for you and Website Cam, it's gonna be a rough ride. Starting us off here, we've got the homepage. Looks very 2002, a couple links to different versions, but let's stay here for now. The following statement is the very first sentence on the Hybrid website. Disclaimer. Warning. Rule number 196 is X-rated, and that to calculate L, use X equals C2 divided by 10 to the second, which is for mature audience only at or above age of 20, but most 90% of this RPG is for all ages, though maybe not rule number 193, which is not meant to be read by kids, and rule number 187 explains homosexuality mathematically using modifier G at 11.
For the last fucking time, nobody said there'd be math! I blame our schools.
Excuse me? This is my first introduction to the game? I just sat down! Who starts a conversation like that? Oh, by the way, do you see all of this blue underlined text everywhere? Yeah, only the game versions at the top are hyperlinks. None of the other blue text that appears are hyperlinks. If you are wondering why the blue text, then I implore you to stop asking questions. They will destroy you.
Yeah, as someone who also had the misfortune of finding out this game is not exaggerating. It only gets worse.
My thanks to the host for the free hosting of my free RPG, Hybrid. But 10% of this RPG is not suitable for children. This is a science fiction RPG. It's mostly fiction. Also, there is no intention to offend any race or gender. It's mostly fiction. And there is no intention to offend any race or and gender or and workings of science or and technology. Most of my RPG is science fiction. Again, this role-playing game is free, and I attempt to make monthly updates to keep it as accurate as possible, by which I mean to weed out typos and any errors in my equations, but 10% of this RPG is not suitable for children. If the whole thing is typed like this, I'm going to go insane. Also, what do you mean by mostly
It's typed
fiction?
like that.
Is it all fantasy stuff, but there's an accurate real-world potato growth chart in here? And why did that come right after the race disclaimer? Again, this is the first thing that you see on the official website. At the current moment, this is literally all I know about the game.
Yeah, not gonna lie, this sounds like something not even freaking Ililia could think of. And I've seen the shit Ililia could think of. I don't even know what the hell this shit he's even talking about most of the time. Or like, actually, scratch that. I don't know what it's talking about at all.
Next up, a long run-on sentence talking about referencing copyrighted characters is backed up by... Not that anyone would be interested in reading my RPG Hybrid, which is unpopular due to it being mostly diceless, as there is only one rule regarding use of dice, that being to get 2 to 3 or greater for success at particular unit of magnitude for DP for character creation and for success of LS or and PL for conflict resolution. Setting! Theme, vibe, my guy, I need something about your game other than the DP clause. It was at this point when I looked over at the scroll wheel and realized to my eternal horror that this page goes on for eons. It is a nearly endless collection of ramblings that might actually kill me if I try to read through it all. So I decided to go back up to the top and check out the game itself before my brain melt flares back up. The link to version 0.2 is broken, so I instead try version 1.5. This link works and successfully takes me to the page for version 0.3. I'm about to cast Fatal. I'm sorry everybody, but I'm taking you down with me. There are only 50 pages of this RPG, so I might just be lucky enough to survive. Quote, required tool, a calculator with log10 function. Hint, for those who like to create Digimon-like monsters, use at rule number 111 and number 113. Hint, for those who like to create cyborgs like the $6 Million Man, look at rule number 114. Hint, for how to convert numeric notation for power into letter notation, look at rule number 55. I'm just glad it's there in case I need it. Seeing as we might finally be starting to talk about the game, I went back to the main page one more time to see if I missed out on any vital ramblings. And it turns out that, quote, the previous version 0.3 was really version 0.15 at 15% complete. So the actual RPG in its newest form is posted in its entirety on the main page. And it is not 50 pages. It is 145 pages.
The fuck?
joyous day.
There's actually 140 pages of this rambling. What the actual fuck?
At this point, I'm just trying to find the actual game, so let's get moving.
Good.
Example 1, negative energy calculations. Example 3, the greatest military equation for both military and non-military applications. Example 5, the Comet Empire. Example 6, the Iraqi nuclear war program. I almost quit.
Oh god. They even had mechanics that don't even mean anything. Or events that don't even mean anything.
Quit right there. What is this? Is this why we needed the mostly fantasy disclaimer? Because the game doesn't function properly without the Iraqi nuclear war program? Quick side note. Look at example under movie reviews for movie Matrix to understand this RPG hybrid. Well, my review of Hero RPG is not all negative, as the description of Atlantis was accurate for the most part. This note continues on for 7 paragraphs until it reaches its own off-topic discussion segment about the state of Louisiana and alimony payments being a new form of slave labor, before it then goes right back to the previous off-topic note, which was cut off mid-sentence. In an effort to convey to you how brain-busting this next part is, I would like for you to guess what the next segment after this multi-page long solo dialogue about a completely unrelated RPG is. I'm not going to tell you the answer. I am just going to give you 5 seconds to guess and then scroll down to reveal it to you. A reminder that we have yet to see a single effing thing about the actual game. Good guess. Let's see what's up next. It took me nearly 20 minutes to mentally recover from that. A complete brownie cake recipe based on the game with a bake time of 22 minutes. Wow, that's so cool. Hey, how long do I stick my head in the oven for? I have yet to see a single rule, and this page has caused me to almost quit twice. I am now legitimately scared to continue scrolling down since I can't rule out the next segment isn't how to make a hybrid-themed bomb. After this, we finally reach the preface. Highlights include being able to use the hybrid system in many popular RPGs like Yu-Gi-Oh! And something about Galactus being too old. Before we finally reach the introduction to hybrid, which is of course using black text on a dark blue background. Painful, but at least we can start. What's the first thing about the game that we decide to highlight here? Nothing. In fact, first, we need to go through his reviews of 17 different RPGs and 3 unrelated movies. Honestly, that one's on me. I should have seen that coming. Oh, look, he reviewed The World of Cinnabar. He says that it's got some great reading, but is disappointed that there are almost no equations in it. Core rules? Oh, we've done it! We finally reached the actual game! Okay, nobody panic, calm down. If we get too excited, we might scare the game off. Let's begin with something simple. What is the first chapter that we are using here? Theme, setting, character creation, maybe a class or two? Wrong, Chuckle Nuts. Hybrid doesn't do chapters. Instead, what we do here is list off every single rule in the game on a numbered list in a random, undetermined order, each rule being marked by only a number with no table of contents or index. Wow! Unfathomable! Here's what I mean. Rule 0 is an equation that shows how often the game itself will be updated. Rule 1 showcases the conflict between order and chaos in the universe. Rule 2 is the equation for a character's martial arts grade. Rule 3 is how to distribute points. Rule 4 is how to calculate height based on race, like the Israeli male, the Oriental male, and DC's Lobo. And Rule 5 is the equation for weapon damage up to the godly level. Every single rule in the game is conveyed in this manner in the same writing style we have seen before, with little rhyme or reason for the order in which rules are added. Imagine if you had to learn something like D&D using a similar structure. It would legitimately be a numbered Google Doc that would go, 1. How often a new book comes out. 2. How to calculate your magic attack stat. 3. The amount of experience you get for winning a fight. 4. How to roll dice. 5. How much damage a crossbow does. This is not a feasible way to learn! F it, we're already here, so we might as well show off the goods. Here are some of the rules that will help you on whatever the heck kind of adventure would end up using all of these. Rule 9. Equation for light speed travel. Rule 11. Equation for how to compute annual salary. Rule 18. Equation for how to clone a person. Rule 22. Equation for time travel. Rule 25. Mass of an interstellar object. Rule 27. Equation for how many ghosts can be captured at once. Rule 34. Equation for battles between two souls. Rule 36. Equation for determining how much manpower is needed to get a job done. Rule 37. Equation for love. Rule 52. How to use time travel by Maxwell's time equation to violate copyright law. Rule 59. Equation for determining the height of a woman. Rule 69. The elite male human population pattern. Rule 71. How to use the cloning equation to determine the amount of wives a man can have. Rule 80. Quote, "The following rule may or may not be accurate. Disclaimer. What everyone should know about feminist issues, the male positive perspective." This is the only other functional hyperlink on the site and goes to an article from Backlash about male violence based on the book Women Who Love Men Who Kill. Rule 86. Equation for determining a guy's chances with a woman. Rule 89. Equation for improving your grade point average. Rule 90. How to travel to Pluto and back on a non-state sponsored personal project. This rule is 4 paragraphs long. Rule 106. How to calculate a woman's power level. Rule 114. How to create a cyborg character like the $6 Million Man. This is the very first mention of how to create a character. Rule 116. How to destroy an incomplete Death Star. Rule 119. Number of years a US president can be expected to remain in office. Rule 128. Equation for how to clone specifically DC's Lobo. Rule 137. Quote, Godzilla storyline probably does not take place in present timeline within context of the story, but in future timeline, meaning a Godzilla in 1960 Godzilla movie would take place in the year 2300 AD. This confirms that there is supposed to be a storyline somewhere in here. I have no idea where it is. Rule 146, damage calculation. It took us until Rule 146 to get to damage calculation. Rule 166, how to create the Decepticons and Autobots from the 80s cartoon series The Transformers. You've got the touch, you've got the power. Rule 177, some of his favorite equations from the rules so far. Rule 180, an entirely new nuclear bomb equation from the previous one. Rule 184, an entirely new salary equation based on which economic system you are working in. Rule 193, the definition of a sodomy, which is illegal in the state of Louisiana. Rule 195, a reminder that Rule 196 is X-rated and anyone under the age of 21 should absolutely not read it. Rule 196, the equation for determining the size of a dude's junk. Included as it is, quote, an essential part of character creation process for male characters, and because the arithmetic seems to be accurate. Rule 198, equation for the effectiveness of the Iraqi nuclear war program. Rule 202, the third new equation we've gotten for determining someone's salary. And Rule 203, 2 new equations, those being number of years of attending college as a full-time student and passing with decent grades, and how many years it will take Iraq to gain nuclear technology. These two are somehow intertwined. After this, the website just ends. It's over. There's nothing else here. That is everything that Hybrid has on offer. You now know everything there is to know about this game, so I offer you a challenge. Can you give me a 1-sentence synopsis on what this game is? Here, I'll even help you out. I'll get it started for you. Hybrid is the 1966 RPG where all you gotta do is finish the sentence. I need you to do it because I sure can't. Others seem to share this sentiment, as when I look online to see reviews.
If you don't know Cam, I don't think anybody does. Jesus fucking Christ. Damn, a stroke just figuring this shit out.
None of them are able to go more than a few sentences long in trying to explain their thoughts. This is probably because, after having to bear the full brunt of the page, they now hold nothing but utter contempt for the entire English language. Even worse, when I looked around online again, I found out that the game had been updated from version 0.3 to version 0.21. What's that? That's going backwards. Buddy, are you still holding on to rational thought? My version was from 2002, this version is from 2007, and it now contains 551 rules listed even more confusingly, as now you have a list of the new rules going down the page until you get halfway down, and then parts of the old website will be randomly added in with no regard to paragraph structure, so the first rule on the page is Rule 551, and the last rule on the page is Rule 312. The newer rules are also significantly longer now too, due to them also devolving into offshoot rants like all the other parts of the site. Heck, Rule 551 isn't even a rule, it's just a rant about US involvement in the Middle East. My guy, I'm trying to play as Optimus Prime. Other new oddities include a disclaimer that the original hybrid brownie cake recipe did not work correctly and you should just use the one on the back of the box. Rule 525, which states, number of useful rules in my RPG will be number of rules divided by GPA. My total number of useful rules comes out to 151. That is very generous. And a couple of different segments on how to port the game's engine into, of all things, effing Fatal. You may think this entire thing is a joke, and I don't blame you. I also thought it was a joke once, but it's too real. This has been getting updated for decades. The mathematics are too complex, the lingo is too fleshed out, and the prose is too downright insane to be faked. If you told a legitimately sane person to write in the same way that this is written, they couldn't do it. Not this consistently, not for this long. They'd crack under the weight of their sins. This is by far the worst tabletop RPG of all time. Fatal and that game have worse contents and themes, yes, that is understood. But this is completely incomprehensible. I legitimately, for the life of me, cannot begin to understand what I am looking at here on even a basic level. It is to my belief that if you tried to legitimately set up and play this game, you would straight up die. If you doubt even one single claim that I am making about this game, I have both the 2002 and the 2007 versions linked below. Take 15 minutes to try to read and comprehend any of what's going on here, and then report back if you survived. I recommend the 2002 version because if you look through 2007s and get hit with the quote, "So this, that the American public is gullible and they will believe anything that any authority figure will tell them is what DC and Marvel have been trying to tell its readers for the past half a century," you will probably end up like that lady in the 4th Indiana Jones. And that is all for the worst tabletop RPGs. So while I go off and get a psychiatric evaluation, let me know below if I am missing any other horrific material that I could add to the pile that is my now smoldering brainstem. Don't limit yourself to just the TTRPGs either. Think of any board or card games you think will finally break me. At this point, I might as well shoot for the mental damage high score. Signing off for Fear of the Unknowable and Incomprehensible, I am Cam Sandwich. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day. A special thank you to my suppliers, staff, and chefs over at the deli, as well as the media preservers helping me get these rare games ported for the public to enjoy. If you'd like to join the crew, you can take a look using the link in the description below.
Yeah, that was the worst tabletop RPGs. Yeah, I think I'm about to have an aneurysm trying to figure out the last one. Let's see. Oh, dang, even he made a video. Okay. Hmm. It's- Yeah, I'm just gonna go with Donkey Kong music. I'll draw this. Oh, thank you. Hmm. Let's see. Oh, I'm drawing a Nagavoro OC of mine. Oh, it's a Nagavoro Magus hybrid anyways. There we go. Almost forgot. Dang it. Another one. Okay, there we go. Oh, right. There we go. Alright. Well, I think that'll be it for tonight. I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I will see you all next time.